Chapter 309. His jaw dropped to the ground. Was this his father, who always wore a straight face and looked like he wanted to eat someone? Was he hallucinating because he had been too busy for the past 2 days? Until Qin Zishi said crisply, "Dad, you're back." Father Qin finally reacted. Everything in front of him wasn't a hallucination. His father was really hugging a young man's shoulder and chatting with a girl. Also, there was a cute child sitting beside him. His father, who never had much luck with children, was actually sitting with a child, and the child wasn't even scared to tears. Oh my God, he just didn't come home for a day. Why did it feel like the end of the world? No, it was already the end of the world. Father Qin felt that he was already speaking incoherently. He hit his head and walked over. Xiao Shi, you're back. Dad, you're in a good mood today. The old man immediately glared at his son. Don't come over. Move your face away. Don't scare my baby. As he spoke, he pulled the little bun closer to his chest. Father Qin's mouth twitched. You're always the one scaring other people's children, okay? Also, this is someone else's baby, not your baby. However, Father Qin didn't dare to complain. Although he was a powerful official to outsiders, in his own home, in his father's eyes, he would always be a child who hadn't grown up. As long as he provoked his father, he would be beaten up. Moreover, he would be beaten up on the butt, not giving him any face at all. 2 days ago, he provoked his father. Now, he didn't dare to use any strength when sitting down. What if he accidentally provoked his father again and beat him up in front of so many people? How embarrassing would that be? How would he live if word got out? Thus, Papa Qin calmly took 2 steps back and retreated to a safe distance. Then, he grinned and revealed what he thought was a very kind smile. Father, do you think this is okay? Then, he was hit by the old man's shoehorn. Xiao Qing's mouth twitched. Look at that smile. Was it hereditary? Fortunately, Qin Zishi wasn't like this father and son. Looking at Qin Zishi's fair and tender appearance, she probably took after her mother. Move aside. Don't embarrass yourself. After the old man scolded Father Qin, he looked at the little bun gently. What do you want to eat tonight? Grandpa will ask someone to make it for you. The little bun counted on his fingers. I want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs and winter melon soup. As he counted, he turned around and asked his mommy, Mommy, can I have a pudding after dinner tonight? Xiao Qing nodded. She usually wouldn't force little bun to eat, but she would control the amount of sweets little bun ate because eating too much sweets was bad for his teeth and body. Little bun immediately said happily, then give me a pudding. I want to eat strawberry-flavored ones. Sure, anything is fine. The old man's face was so gentle that Father Qin's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. This was his father. She had never been so gentle to him. Since they were young, they would be beaten up even more. If they were disobedient, they would be beaten up even more. If they caused trouble, they would be beaten up even more. If their grades were not good in the military academy, they would be beaten up even more. If they were in a bad mood, they would be beaten up even more. For the past few decades, other than when Qin Zishi was born, they had never smiled at him. Father Qin felt wronged. He picked up the shoehorn that his father had thrown over and had to return it. Little Bun ran over and took the shoehorn, even putting it on for his father. After all, the old man was very good to him. That was how a person should be. Mommy had said that one should repay the kindness given to them. In any case, if they were good to you, you should also be good to them. Chapter 310. The old man quickly lifted his foot. Don't, Grandpa's feet stink. The little bun was even faster and had already helped the old man put on his shoes. The old man's face was flushed, and he was so happy that it was as if the little bun was his grandson. Mr. Chin was speechless. The old man looked up and saw his useless son. He immediately shouted, "Why are you standing there like a fool? Can't you see that there are guests? Why did I give birth to such an idiot?" Mr. Chin was scolded like a wilted eggplant. The old man glared at him. "I told you not to stand there like a fool. Go to the kitchen and tell the chef that we're having sweet and sour pork ribs and winter melon soup tonight. Also, give me a... does the baby like beans? How about scrambled eggs with tomatoes?" The little bun said in a childish voice, "I can eat anything except coriander. Grandpa, you don't have to always order what I like. I'm not picky. Just order whatever you like. Good baby. Then give me stir-fried green beans and scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Leave the rest to the chef. Don't forget to make dessert too. I want strawberry-flavored pudding." The old man waved his hand. Mr. Chin felt that he had been reduced to a housekeeper. He felt wronged. "Hurry up." The old man glared at him. "I always thought that you couldn't think straight. Now that I see it, you're really stupid." Mr. Chin was defeated. The old man was in a very good mood. This good mood lasted until dinner. During dinner, the little bun sat beside him. He kept putting food in the little bun's bowl. He was even more considerate than Xiao Qing, the little bun's mother. The little bun would also put food in his bowl. Those who didn't know would definitely think that the little bun was the old man's grandson. Even Qin Zishi was ignored. Thus, Qin Zishi and Mr. Chin formed a pitiful father-son team. One was ignored by his father, and the other was ignored by his grandfather. After dinner, the little bun sat at the side and ate the pudding contentedly. The old man then asked Xiao Qing, "You're not from the capital, right?" Xiao Qing nodded. "We're from the survivor base in S City." "So, did you come to the capital to take a look, or what?" If it was someone else, he would definitely not ask this question. The old man's position in the Celestial Empire was unshakable. There were not many people who could make him pay attention to them, especially the younger generation, which was even rarer. It was because of the little bun and the fact that Xiao Qing was to his liking that he asked a few more questions. "Originally, I just wanted to come over and take a look. I also have the idea of settling down here, but I haven't decided yet." Xiao Qing didn't say too much. She understood what the old man meant. If they wanted to settle down, the old man would definitely help them. Xiao Qing really didn't want to owe others too much. If Qin Zishi wanted to help her, she definitely wouldn't say anything, but if Qin Zishi's grandfather wanted to help her, it wasn't the same concept. The old man could also see Xiao Qing's thoughts, so he didn't ask much. He only said, "Well, settling down here is not bad. You can stay at our house tonight. It's quite late now, and it's troublesome to find a place to stay. There are quite a lot of rooms at home, so it won't be a problem for the few of you to stay." Xiao Qing didn't plan to refuse. The old man immediately said, "Let the baby sleep with me tonight. Is that okay, baby?" "Okay." The little bun blinked and immediately said, "Well, if Grandpa likes me, he won't object to me being good friends with Brother Xiaoxi, right? Grandpa, why don't you, Brother Xiaoxi, and I sleep together?" The old man thought about it. Anyway, the bed was quite big, and he didn't lack a grandson. He nodded and then looked at Xiao Qing. An old man with white hair and beard looked at you with expectant eyes. No one could say no. Xiao Qing could only say, "Don't trouble Grandpa." "I know, Mama," the little bun said obediently. Then, the old man held his grandson's hand in his left hand and the little bun's hand in his right hand. With the feeling of a winner in life, they went upstairs to sleep. Father Qin was left to arrange a place for Xiao Qing and the others to stay. Father Qin was quite cold to Xiao Qing. He arranged for the housekeeper to make arrangements for them. Xiao Qing slept in the same room as the 2 octopuses she brought. Yes, the 2 octopuses crawled over in the middle of the night. When the 2 of them went over, it was already the middle of the night. Normal people would be asleep at this time, but Xiao Qing wasn't. She leaned on the bed and looked at the ceiling. Yan Qiue was the first to go over. He organized his words and said, "Are you still thinking about the man you met today?" What's there to think about that kind of gigolo? Look, the 2 of us are enough. Dai agreed and leaned over. That's right, what's so good about that kind of gigolo? Xiao Qing sighed and said, "How did you know I was thinking about him? Do you even need to ask? You definitely know each other. Just by looking at the way he looks at you, I know that he has feelings for you." Yan Qiue whispered, "He definitely has feelings for you." Xiao Qing smiled and said, "Then do you want to guess what I'm thinking about? Are you thinking about your past?" Yan Qiue widened his eyes and said, "I think there must be something between you 2. Xiao Qing said indifferently, "You're half right. Am I right that you're thinking about your past, or that there's something between you 2? In fact, Yan Qiue appeared to be jealous, but he knew in his heart that Xiao Qing's old man's eyes were definitely not gentle. He just saw that Xiao Qing was in a bad mood and deliberately made her happy. Xiao Qing said the second half of the sentence. Yan Qiue immediately went over and said coquettishly, "That's already the past. You have to look forward. Look at your side. With someone as handsome as me, why are you still thinking about him?" "I'm thinking about how to kill him." Xiao Qing said very seriously, "I've already thought of dozens of ways to die. Do you want to help me?" Yan Qiue was speechless. Chapter 311. Although Yan Qiue had been a little jealous before, he just wanted to shrink his head back because he had heard Xiao Qing's cold words clearly. She was telling the truth. She was indeed thinking about how to kill Lin Qifan, and she had thought of more than one method. But who was Yan Qiue? He had an unscrupulous personality. If Xiao Qing killed someone, he would pass the knife to her. If Xiao Qing was tired, he would take the knife and help her kill for a while. He didn't care who Xiao Qing wanted to kill, whether it was a powerful paranormal, an innocent person, or a big boss. As long as Xiao Qing wanted to kill someone, he would help without hesitation. Perhaps in many people's eyes, Yan Qiue's personality was very dangerous and creepy, but Xiao Qing liked it. She liked this part of him. What was the purpose of a person's life? Others didn't know, but Xiao Qing only wanted the people she cared about to live a better life. As long as she could live a better life, it was enough. Especially in this post-apocalyptic world, if she didn't take advantage of the current situation, when would she have the chance? Perhaps she would lose her head tomorrow. She was most afraid of being betrayed, but Yan Qiue wouldn't betray her. His extreme fanaticism, his extreme love for her, and his extreme personality were the reasons why Xiao Qing trusted him so much. Even Yan Hanqing's trust in Xiao Qing was slightly lower than Yan Qiue's. There was also Dai. Dai wasn't a human, and he relied on Xiao Qing to the extreme. It could be said that Dai was the person Xiao Qing trusted the most. So while Xiao Qing was thinking about how to kill Lin Qifan, the 2 of them were already thinking about how to help Xiao Qing kill him. They didn't even need to ask why Xiao Qing wanted to kill Lin Qifan, because if Xiao Qing wanted Lin Qifan dead, they would kill Lin Qifan. Xiao Qing understood this clearly, but she didn't want to hide it from the 2 men, so Xiao Qing said calmly, "Lin Qifan is the baby's biological father." The 2 men were stunned. In the past, when people asked Xiaoqing who the baby's biological father was, Xiaoqing would either smile and say that the baby's biological father was dead. They didn't expect that the dead baby's father would appear again. Lin Qifan was my husband. Lin Qifan was my husband. We were married and registered, but I didn't know that he cheated on me. I didn't know until the day of the apocalypse when his mistress killed me while I was pregnant. Only then did I know that I was quite unfortunate but also very lucky. Coincidentally, the apocalypse happened. Perhaps it was because I was infected with the zombie virus and awakened my superpower a second before I breathed my last. That's why I didn't die. I crawled out of the hospital freezer and gave birth to the baby, turning into a half-human, half-zombie monster. Xiaoqing's tone was very calm. At the beginning of the apocalypse, she was angry and extreme. She only thought about revenge, and her entire being was consumed by bloodthirsty thoughts. But now, when that person was mentioned again, she didn't have any emotions. Her heart was as calm as a windless lake. It was probably because Dai and the others had healed the wound in her heart. Although Xiaoqing spoke very calmly, the two men were about to go crazy. How could there be such a man in this world? He clearly already had the best treasure in the world, but he insisted on abandoning it like a shoe and picking up some trash. Although they were glad that the man was blind and didn't recognize the real treasure, they felt even more sorry for Xiaoqing. She was betrayed by her own husband, killed by a mistress, and was pregnant when she died. Chapter 312. Xiaoqing must have been very sad and desperate at that time. Now, even without Xiaoqing, the two of them wanted to tear that idiot apart. Especially Yan Qiue, he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Seriously, how could there be such an idiot in this world? If he had Xiaoqing and Xiaoqing was willing to give birth to his child, he would have been overjoyed. He would be willing to shorten his life by 10 years. But this man, not only did he not cherish Xiaoqing, he even left her behind to find another woman. He must be an idiot. How could such a lucky man not be him? Moreover, it was all because of this idiot that Xiaoqing was unwilling to accept another man as her lover. It made his pursuit of her difficult and long. All right, let's go to sleep. Anyway, he's in the capital. If you want to kill him, you can do it any time. I'm not in a hurry at all, Xiaoqing said calmly. She had to think of a unique way to kill him. She had to think of a way to kill Lin Qifan. Xiaoqing felt very uncomfortable if she did not look at him and feel the despair she felt back then. The two men closed their eyes obediently. In fact, they were thinking about how to torture Lin Qifan. In fact, killing a person was not the best choice for revenge. Making him beg for death was more satisfying. Especially for this kind of idiot. Wouldn't it be too easy for him to die too quickly? Early the next morning, the two men got out of bed and went back to their rooms. Then, they pretended to have just woken up and came out of their rooms. Who didn't know what they were trying to do? Who didn't know where they slept last night? Father Qin ran away early, probably to hide from the old man. Xiaoqing stretched and went downstairs lazily. As soon as she came downstairs, she saw a rich lady sitting on the first floor. The noblewoman was drinking tea. Her clothes and appearance were top-notch. Xiaoqing was stunned. The noblewoman was also stunned. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiaoqing warily. Xiaoqing didn't know her, but judging from her age, she should be in her 30s. Naturally, she had to be polite in someone else's house. Xiaoqing said, "Madam, I'm Qin Zixi friend." "Oh, so you are little Xi's friend." The woman narrowed her eyes, but the vigilance in her eyes did not disappear. She smiled and said, "I'm Xiao Xi's mother." "So it's..." Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment and couldn't say the word auntie. After all, the age gap between her and this woman wasn't that big. Counting carefully, she was 28 years old this year and was almost 30 years old. At this time, little Baozi ran down, followed by Qin Zishi and the old man. Little Baozi ran over first and jumped into Xiao Qing's arms. Then, he gave Xiao Qing a morning kiss. "Good morning, Mama." Xiao Qing's eyes softened. She touched little Baozi's head and said, "How did you sleep last night? Were you naughty?" "I slept very well. I just missed Mama a little." Little Baozi pouted and said coquettishly, "I was very obedient. I wasn't naughty at all." "That's good." Xiao Qing said, Call her auntie." Little Baozi turned to look at the woman and said softly, "Hello, auntie." The woman's vigilance almost overflowed. She pursed her lips and smiled. "What a cute baby." She stood up and walked over. First, she touched Qin Zishi's head lovingly. Then, she smiled and said, "Daddy, you look so good today." The old man's face was cold and expressionless. Then, he said, "That's enough. There are no outsiders here. There's no need for formalities. Tell them to eat breakfast. The baby should be hungry." Chapter 313. The woman lowered her head slightly. Her eyes were filled with confusion. She was Qin Zishi's stepmother. Qin Zishi's mother had passed away when she gave birth to him. Mr. Qin was worried that a child without a mother would go astray, so he remarried and married Mrs. Qin. However, Qin Zishi didn't like her stepmother. After marrying Mr. Qin, Mrs. Qin hadn't been able to give birth. She had gone to the hospital for a checkup and found nothing wrong with her body. There were only two possibilities. Either there was something wrong with Mr. Qin's body, or he didn't want her to give birth. The answer was obvious. If there was something wrong with Mr. Qin's body, how did Qin Zishi give birth to him? It was obvious that Mr. Qin didn't want her to give birth to the heir of the Qin family, or he was worried that after she gave birth to the child of the Qin family, the child would compete with Qin Zishi for the Qin family. Therefore, Mrs. Qin had been brooding. Now, there was a woman who was very good-looking and had a child. More importantly, she seemed to be liked by Qin Zishi and the old man. How could Mrs. Qin not be vigilant? She looked at the little bun carefully, but the little bun looked like Xiao Qing. She couldn't tell if the little bun was related to Mr. Qin. After looking for a while, Mrs. Qin smiled and said, "I'll go tell the chef now." After Mrs. Qin left, the old man took the baby and Qin Zishi to sit on the sofa. The housekeeper came up and poured some tea. "How many days do you plan to stay?" The old man took a sip of tea and asked in a low voice. "We're leaving today. There are people waiting for us at home in S City." Xiao Qing chuckled and said, "We've been away for a long time this time." The old man obviously couldn't bear to part with the little bun, so he asked tentatively, "Why don't you stay for one more day? Today, Xiaoxi will take you around the capital city. It's not easy to come here." Xiao Qing thought about it. One more day wasn't a bad idea. Besides, the little bun probably wanted to spend more time with Qin Zishi. She didn't know when they would meet again, so she nodded and agreed. The old man's brows immediately relaxed, and then he said, "Little Shi, take little Qing and the others to walk around today. Take a look at all the fun and delicious places. I'm already old, and I don't know where is suitable for you young people." Qin Zishi had always been very obedient in front of the old man. "Okay, Grandpa, I will." The woman soon returned and gracefully walked to the side of the sofa. Then, she raised her hand and poured a cup of tea for everyone. Then, she said, "How should I address you?" The little bun said seriously, "Auntie, my mother's name is Xiao Qing." Xiao means Xiao, and Qing means Qing. His description made Qin Zishi laugh. Who would introduce someone with the words, "Little Bun is the only one who has the feelings of a lover"? The woman was clearly a little confused by the little bun's unexpected behavior. She forced a smile and said, "It's a very nice name. Can I call you Xiao Qing? If you don't mind, you can call me Sister Shui." Xiao Qing naturally wouldn't embarrass her. She called out softly, "Sister Shui." "Xiao Qing, this is your first time in the capital, right?" the woman asked. "Yes," Xiao Qing said dryly. She couldn't get used to the sudden enthusiasm, especially when it wasn't pure. Xiao Qing, where are you from?" "The capital city is very big and prosperous. Since you have nothing to do these 2 days, why don't we go out and have a look?" the woman said enthusiastically. Xiao Qing held the cup and said expressionlessly, "I'm from the survivor base in S City. But I won't bother you. I'll go out with Xiao Shi and the others." Chapter 314. Don't be so courteous with Sister Shui. We're all friends. Before the woman could finish, Qin Zishi interrupted her expressionlessly. "All right, stop pretending to be a good person here. I'll take Sister Qing out for a walk." The woman's expression was a little ugly. After a while, she recovered. "Lil Shi, what are you saying? Don't you understand what I'm saying?" Qin Zishi's expression was cold, not giving her any face. "I said, I don't need your fake kindness. I'll take my friends out for a walk. Do you understand?" The old man coughed and said, "Lil Shi, how can you talk to your mother like that?" "Who's my mother?" "My mother is downstairs. She doesn't deserve to be my mother." With that, Qin Zishi pushed the teacup away and walked out. When the little bun saw this, he quickly jumped down from Xiao Qing's arms and ran after Qin Zishi, leaving the 3 adults behind. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. After a long time, the old man said calmly, "Xiao Shui, Lil Shi's temper is like that. Don't take it to heart." Although he said that, he didn't blame Qin Zishi in his eyes. Clearly, he didn't like this daughter-in-law very much. However, no matter how much he disliked her, he still had to give her face because she was Papa Qin's daughter-in-law. She was his daughter-in-law. Since she had entered his family, he had to give her the respect she deserved. "Father, why would I blame Lil Shi? Sigh. His temper needs to be changed." The woman quickly recovered and said to Xiao Qing apologetically, "I'm sorry, little Qing. I made a fool of myself." Xiao Qing quickly shook her head and held the teacup, not saying a word. The richer the family, the more complicated it was. Previously, she was thinking of finding a stepfather for the little bun. After all, it wasn't good for the baby to be fatherless. But now, she was starting to waver. Was it really good to find a stepfather? If the little bun was like Lil Shi and didn't have a good life, then she might as well not find a stepfather and let her son be bullied for no reason. The old man at the side also said, "Xiao Qing, we've really embarrassed ourselves in front of you this time. Lil Shi's temper is too rash. Just this point alone makes me very worried." Xiao Qing didn't say anything and only smiled. She also felt that the atmosphere was extremely awkward and couldn't sit still. Fortunately, Yan Qiue and the others had come down at this moment. The old man stood up and said, "I'll go look for little Shi. You young people should sit together and chat. I won't interfere. I'll go." Xiao Qing, who was eager to get rid of this awkward situation, volunteered. The second person who volunteered was the woman. However, the old man waved his hand and said, "I'm not that old that I can't walk. You guys sit down. I'll just take it as a walk." After the old man left, the atmosphere didn't ease up at all because there was nothing to talk about. It was only when Yan Qiue and the others walked over that Yan Qiue was like an octopus. The moment she came over, she occupied the seat on Xiaoqing's left. It was as though she had no bones as she leaned on Xiaoqing's body softly. Dummy immediately sat on the right side of Xiaoqing, which made the woman stunned. She looked up and saw all kinds of handsome men, including those who were cold and ascetic, those who were handsome and strong, those who were enchanting and charming, and those who were cute and handsome. None of them looked bad. They directly surrounded Xiaoqing. Her jaw was about to hit the ground. Xiaoqing pushed Yan Qiue and frowned. Don't you have any bones? Sit up. Why are you leaning on me? Yan Qiue acted coquettishly and leaned closer. Let me lean on you. Why don't you dislike air dye? Xiaoqing was helpless against this man who was always jealous. She poked Yan Qiue and said embarrassedly, they have such bad tempers. I'm sorry. Chapter 3:15. The woman's hostility immediately vanished. She finally understood that she had been wrong. How could Xiaoqing have an affair with Papa Qin? Judging by the looks of the men around her, Xiaoqing would never fall for Papa Qin. It wasn't that Papa Qin was ugly. He could be considered handsome, but compared to these men, he was a far cry. Then the little bun definitely wasn't Papa Qin's child and wouldn't fight with her for Papa Qin. The woman immediately relaxed. Her enthusiasm this time was really pure. You guys are all true, she couldn't help but chuckle to herself. After Qin Zishi was found, his expression was still very ugly, but he didn't provoke the woman again. The atmosphere was still a little awkward. After finishing the meal, the old man waved his hand. You can go out and play, but there's a limit. Come back early. Qin Zishi left with the group. He really didn't want to see that woman again. Ever since he could remember, he had fallen out with Papa Qin many times because of this woman. He didn't have a mother. His mother had passed away. This woman had nothing to do with him. Qin Zishi had once fought with Papa Qin because he forced him to call her mother. That time, Papa Qin's face was almost disfigured. Although they were already out, Qin Zishi was still in a bad mood. The little bun didn't know how to comfort his little friend, so he looked at Xiaoqing for help. Xiaoqing gently patted Qin Zishi's back and said, Why are you angry? I hate her. I hate her appearing in my house. My father clearly said that he loved my mother. Then why did he marry another woman after my mother passed away? Qin Zishi's eyes were red. She was very puzzled. Since he was very young, many people had told him that his father and mother were very much in love. However, his father, who said that he loved his mother, married another woman 2 years after his mother passed away. Wasn't this a joke? Could this so-called love only last for 2 years? Xiaoqing patted Qin Zishi's head. Adults and children think differently. Perhaps your father really loved your mother, but the dead are gone. We have to think of the living. Even I have considered finding a stepfather for the baby many times. After Xiaoqing said this, many people pricked up their ears, especially Yan Qiue. She was completely focused on what she was going to say. Why? Because the books say that children who grow up without a father easily lose their father's love. When they grow up, they will easily go astray. Xiaoqing chuckled and said, I want my child to grow up healthy. I don't want him to be criticized because he doesn't have a father. I want to give him a complete family and a happy childhood. I think your father would think the same. Qin Zishi sneered, then whispered, someone like him, wouldn't. Seeing that Qin Zishi was a little convinced, Little Bun quickly comforted his little friend and diverted his attention. Brother Xiaoxi, don't be sad. Play with the baby. He picked up Yiya and threw a ball out. He said to Yiya, "Go and pick it up." Yiya, who was forced to become a dog, had no choice but to run all the way out while whimpering. Then, he picked up the ball. The ball rolled and rolled until it reached a person's feet. Yiya had just picked up the ball when he was picked up by someone. Oh my God, what a cute rabbit. But why only one ear? Little Bun saw that Yiya had been picked up by someone else. He quickly ran over and tiptoed. "Sister, can you return Yiya to me?" The girl raised her eyebrows. "This is your rabbit." Little Bun nodded. "Yes, yes." Then, he felt a very strange gaze looking at him. Little Bun turned his head in confusion and saw a man looking at him with a very complicated gaze. Little Bowsy didn't want to stay any longer, so the girl returned the rabbit to him. He ran back with the rabbit in his arms and into his mother's embrace. Then, he whispered, "Mama, there's a strange uncle who keeps looking at me." Xiao Qing looked up and couldn't help but sneer. What was that saying again? Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Chapter 316. The little Bun was delicate and pretty. His features were very similar to Xiao Qing's, but there was a slight resemblance between him and Lin Qifan. Lin Qifan was stunned. He suddenly remembered that at the very beginning, he and Xiao Qing were still very loving. At that time, he would often listen quietly through Xiao Qing's belly. It was like he could hear the baby moving inside. Every now and then, the baby would kick him. The excitement in his heart couldn't help but overflow. That was his first child. He would look a lot like him and Xiao Qing. He would call him Daddy and Mommy. Later on, when he and Fu Jinling fell out, he thought about giving up on Fu Jinling and giving up on the easy promotion. But he couldn't do it. He was a child from a poor family. It wasn't easy for him to get into a famous university. After struggling his way out of a small mountain village, he had enough of living in poverty. So, whenever he had the chance to climb up the ladder, he would rather die than give it up. During that period of time, he was often in a daze. On one hand, he felt the guilt of betrayal, and on the other, he felt the thrill of a promotion. Fu Jinling didn't have any siblings. In other words, as long as he married Fu Jinling and waited for her father to pass away, the company would be in his hands. So, as soon as Fu Jinling expressed her interest in him, he immediately climbed up the ladder. The huge temptation made him forget about his wife at home and the difficult days he had with Xiao Qing. He hid Xiao Qing's existence from Fu Jinling and was sweet with her. Until Xiao Qing was exposed. Fu Jinling argued with him and asked him to divorce her. As he agreed, he didn't want to give up on Xiao Qing. Lin Qifan once thought that perhaps he could divorce Xiao Qing and use sweet words to bewitch her into becoming his secret lover. Then, he would have both wealth and beauty in his arms. However, Lin Qifan was well aware that Xiao Qing was a very proud person. In fact, she wasn't a simple person. The first time he met Xiao Qing, it was when Xiao Qing was injured. Her injury was a gunshot wound. Although Lin Qifan still didn't know Xiao Qing's true identity after their marriage, he was sure of one thing: Xiao Qing had a strong personality. If she found out he had cheated on her, she would rather die than be his secret lover. Just the thought of Xiao Qing leaving him and perhaps becoming another man's wife, making Lin Qifan's jealousy. The jealousy in his heart was like a thick venom, slowly fermenting it. Therefore, when he found out that Fu Jinling wanted to deal with Xiao Qing, he didn't stop Fu Jinling. What he couldn't have, why should he let someone else have it? If Fu Jinling killed Xiao Qing, it would be killing two birds with one stone. He wouldn't have to worry about Xiao Qing divorcing him and marrying another man. Moreover, he would have something on Fu Jinling. Even if she didn't like him in the future, she wouldn't dare to leave him. As for children, even if he lost them, he could always have another one. However, when the news of Xiao Qing's death came, Lin Qifan regretted it. He felt that he was too infatuated. Whenever he thought of the time he spent with Xiao Qing, his heart would ache. However, what did he see now? He saw a child who called Xiao Qing mother. Moreover, that child looked similar to him. Was that his child? Lin Qifan was ecstatic. After the apocalypse, he didn't have any superpowers, so he could only go with the flow. Fortunately, he had a good appearance, so many capable or powerful women were interested in him. That was how he managed to survive. However, those who were interested in him weren't first-rate people. Therefore, he still had to keep a low profile and rely on others. Chapter 317. Until now, he had been wandering between many women. While relying on women to survive, he looked down on those women who kept him as their mistresses. Especially yesterday, Lu Axian avoided Qin Zixi like a snake and was extremely afraid. After returning home, Lu Axian explained to him who Qin Zixi was. He was one of the top 3 young masters in the capital. However, this young master was clearly very close to Xiao Qing, so Lin Qifan had other thoughts. He felt that he could let Xiao Qing return to his side. He still loved Xiao Qing the most, and presumably, Xiao Qing was the same. Moreover, Xiao Qing didn't know the truth back then. At most, she would push all the blame to Fu Jinling. If he said a few good words to Xiao Qing, she would definitely forgive him. In the past, when he occasionally did something wrong, as long as he said some gentle words, Xiao Qing would forgive him. Now, it would definitely be the same. Xiao Qing must have been cold to him because she was still angry. It would be fine once her anger subsided. Moreover, now, there was a little bun. Looking at the age, it didn't match. Even if Xiao Qing didn't die at that time and gave birth to a child, it definitely couldn't be this old. Similarly, it was impossible for her to give birth to a child for someone else, so there was only one possibility, and that was that this child was adopted by Xiao Qing. She probably had a miscarriage, so she adopted a child to comfort herself. However, when Xiao Qing adopted a child, she chose a child who was 70% similar to Xiao Qing and 30% similar to him. Didn't this fully prove that Xiao Qing still had him in her heart? Therefore, Lin Qifan was very confident. He adjusted his expression to make himself look melancholic and affectionate. Then, he walked towards Xiao Qing. "Ah, Qing, are you still angry with me? I don't know anything. She was the one who kept sticking to me. I didn't expect her to harm you. Ah, Qing, come back to me, okay? I will." As soon as he approached, he was stopped by Xiao Tong's mental barrier before he could finish speaking. Yan Qiuat casually waved her hand, and a stream of air hit Lin Qifan's chest, forcing him to take a few steps back and sit on the ground. Yan Qiuat lifted her chin and looked at Lin Qifan with contempt as if she was looking at a piece of trash. She said sarcastically, "Who do you think you are? How dare you spout nonsense? Is Ah Qing someone you can call? Why are you angry with him? My heart will ache." The corners of Xiao Qing's lips curled up, and her eyes softened. Although this man was disgusting, it didn't stop people who were good to her from protecting her. Yan Qiue was teased by Xiao Qing's words. She immediately changed from being mean to Xiao Qing to being gentle. "Then let's ignore him. We were in a good mood when we went out shopping, but it was all ruined by him." Lin Qifan's heart was filled with hatred, but his expression was even more affectionate. With a pale face, he lowered his voice and said, "Ah Qing, are you not willing to forgive me?" At this time, the young girl who was accompanying him walked over with an ugly expression. This young girl was not the Lu Axian from yesterday. She looked slightly older than Lu Axin. The only similarity was that she had a face full of arrogance. Lin Qifan, what are you doing? Who is this woman? The young woman's face was filled with anger. When she looked at Xiaoqing again, her eyes were filled with murderous intent. It wasn't that she loved Lin Qifan that much. It was just that subconsciously, Lin Qifan had been classified as her private property. Now, this private property had applied for and confessed to another woman. It would be strange if she was happy about it. Lin Qifan didn't want to offend this young woman, but he knew very well that if he didn't act decisively and show Xiaoqing his sincerity, it would be impossible for him and Xiaoqing to be together. Chapter 318. Hence, Lin Qifan gritted his teeth and said, "That's my wife, my lover." Lin Qifan. Do you know what you're saying? The girl was stunned. When Lin Qifan was with her, he had always been obedient. This was the first time he had gone against her wishes. However, Yan Qiue was still laughing by the side. Ah, Qing, is this person stupid? How shameless is he to think that a person he sees is his wife? He's probably crazy. Xiaoqing's anger inexplicably dissipated. She didn't hate Lin Qifan, so why would she hate an ant? No, it was trash that couldn't even be considered an ant. As long as she wanted to, killing Lin Qifan would be an easy task. However, she didn't want to kill Lin Qifan so easily, so she was happy to watch the show. It was rare to see such a dog-eat-dog show. Lin Qifan gritted his teeth and said, "Ah Qing, I'm your Qifan. Have you forgotten?" "Ah Qing, it's all my fault. Now that I know I was wrong, I want to repent. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you? Let's start over. I'll definitely treat you well." Lin Qifan. Say that one more fucking word. The girl completely exploded. She felt as though she had been slapped in the face. It was as though she had raised a dog and the dog had bitten her in return. She couldn't tolerate not being angry. She couldn't tolerate not being angry. Lin Qifan didn't say anything. He only looked at Xiaoqing with an affectionate and gentle gaze. However, he could only throw those flirtatious glances at a blind person because Xiaoqing couldn't even be bothered to look at him. The girl angrily went forward and kicked Lin Qifan to the ground. She said coldly, "Lin Qifan, you better remember what you said today. Don't regret it." After saying that, she looked at Xiaoqing with a sinister gaze. "And you? Let me tell you, this is the capital. It's not a place where an outsider like you can be arrogant. You can take this cheap man if you want. After all, he's a piece of trash that has been toyed with. However, I can't take this lying down. Do you have the guts to tell me your name?" Qin Zishi furrowed his brows. He had brought his little friends out to play. How did they end up in such a situation? But before he could do anything, he was stopped by Gu Panpan. Gu Panpan whispered, "Just leave it to Sister Qing." Qin Zishi nodded and continued to watch the show from the back. When Xiaoqing heard this, she laughed and said lazily, "Do you think I'm a garbage collector? Don't be afraid. I wouldn't want a man like this even if you offered him to me. The capital is quite big. I'm just a country bumpkin, but I have a good upbringing. I'm Xiaoqing. If you want to take revenge on me, feel free to do so." She originally thought that the girl would lose her patience and rush forward. She didn't expect the girl to be so patient. After saying those harsh words, she left without even looking at Lin Qifan. Xiaoqing didn't want to kill Lin Qifan today, so after glancing at him, she prepared to leave. How could Lin Qifan let Xiaoqing leave? He had an idea and prepared to pounce on Xiaoqing and hug her thigh. Then, he would say some sweet nothings and apologize. Perhaps he could change Xiaoqing's mind. However, as soon as he pounced over, he was kicked away by Dumbo before he could hold his thigh. His chin was almost broken by the kick. Yen Chiue was still laughing. Dai, you didn't use too much strength. Did you not eat last night? Lin Qifan lay on the floor in disbelief. How could Xiaoqing allow someone to hit him? In the past, Xiaoqing's heart would ache whenever he scratched his skin. Because of one incident where he knocked his forehead on the corner of a table, Xiaoqing put protective covers on all the corners of the furniture in the house. Chapter 319. She was so nice to him at that time. How could such a gentle Xiaoqing allow others to hit him? He must be dreaming. Don't dirty your feet. Xiaoqing patted Dai's head and walked away without looking at Lin Qifan. Lin Qifan reached out a hand and tried to grab Xiaoqing's trousers, but Gu Panpan kicked him away. He was at a loss for a long time. Only when everyone was far away did he raise his head and look at Xiaoqing's back and little bun, who was peeking out from Xiaoqing's shoulder to peek at him. Lin Qifan suddenly felt an indescribable heartache and anger. Why didn't she forgive him? He wasn't the one who hit her. It was Fu Jinling. Why didn't she forgive him? He still loved Xiaoqing. He loved her so much. Why were there so many men by her side? Did she betray him? Lin Qifan's heart was filled with all kinds of doubts. The strange feeling in his heart brewed and turned into embarrassment and anger. In his heart, Xiaoqing was his woman, but another man appeared by her side and acted intimately with that man. This was betrayal. Shouldn't Xiaoqing keep her chastity for him? Also, those men humiliated him like that. Lin Qifan was angry and jealous. His eyes were dark as he looked in the direction Xiaoqing left and kept scheming. He would make Xiaoqing fall in love with him again. He would make her become the gentle Xiaoqing who gave him what he wanted. When the time came, he would kill those men bit by bit. He couldn't help but fantasize about the pleasure of conquering a woman like Xiaoqing. This was something that other women couldn't give him. He secretly calculated in his heart. If he couldn't find a breakthrough with Xiaoqing, then he would start with Little Bun. Little Baozi was still young and easy to fool. Naturally, he would listen to whatever he said. After getting Little Baozi under control, he could use Little Baozi to move and persuade Xiaoqing. On the other side, Xiaoqing, who had already walked far away, was in a good mood. When she looked at Lin Qifan again, it was as if she was looking at a monkey performing acrobatics. However, this monkey's acting skills were very clumsy. Other than wanting to laugh, she did not feel anything else. Xiaoqing even wondered if water had entered her brain back then to have fallen in love with Lin Qifan, a good-for-nothing man with a human face but a beast heart who was extremely fake. She must be out of her mind. That's why she was fooled by such a man and almost killed her poor son. When she thought back to those sweet days, Xiaoqing felt that she was hopelessly stupid. Lin Qifan's performance was so obvious. Other than sweet words, he didn't have much sincerity, but she still fell for it. Xiaoqing wasn't unhappy, but Yen Chiue thought that she was feeling bad. She moved closer to Xiaoqing and comforted her softly. "Ah Qing, why didn't you let me kill him just now?" "Kill him for what?" "Kill him on the spot." Xiaoqing raised her eyebrows and said calmly, "I want him to live." Yen Chiue couldn't help but frown. "Ah Qing, were you moved by his words? And your heart softened? You don't want to kill him anymore?" Xiaoqing was amused. "Do you think that's possible?" "Qiyu, death isn't the scariest thing for humans. What's so scary about death? It's just closing one's eyes. He won't feel anything else. Even if you whip his corpse, he won't feel any pain. How boring is that?" Sometimes, being alive was scarier than being dead. It was more painful than being dead. Yan Qiue naturally understood. He rubbed his chin and said, then, "Ah Qing, what do you want to do?" "I don't need to do anything now. Someone will do it for me." Xiao Qing blinked her eyes. "Don't forget about the girl who said those harsh words just now. You should be able to tell that she's a very arrogant woman. After being humiliated by Lin Qifan, do you think she'll let it go?" Yan Qiue nodded. "Definitely not. With her personality, she'll probably torture Lin Qifan as much as she can. Let him suffer for 2 days, and then Lin Qifan will come to me himself. I'm familiar with his personality. He won't give up. He'll think of other ways to move me. Life is so boring. Why give up on the fun that comes to me?" Xiao Qing smiled, but her eyes were cold. What did Lin Qifan desire his entire life? He craved wealth and power. Then she would make him lose everything. She would make him feel despair and pain. She would make him unable to die even if he wanted to. Otherwise, how could she live up to her and Little Bun's current state? Qin Zishi didn't know anything, but it wasn't hard to tell that Lin Qifan and Xiao Qing had a close relationship. He wasn't stupid. From the conversation between Lin Qifan and Xiao Qing, he could more or less figure out what was going on. Lin Qifan said that he was Xiao Qing's husband. Most likely, Lin Qifan had cheated on Xiao Qing. Now, he wanted to put on a show of a prodigal son turning over a new leaf in exchange for Xiao Qing's change of heart. There was definitely more to it, but it was definitely Lin Qifan's fault. Judging from the two's attitudes, it was obvious. People usually sided with their loved ones. Besides, the truth was on Xiao Qing's side. Qin Zishi immediately leaned over and asked in a low voice, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Then, he patted his chest. "If there's anything, just say it. There are things I don't dare to say. In the capital, it's fine if I can't do it. If there's anything I need, I'll definitely tell you." Xiao Qing smiled. When she turned around, she saw everyone's concerned faces. Everyone's eyes were filled with deep worry. The remaining tyranny in her heart slowly dissipated. Perhaps she had suffered a lot in the past. She had no parents when she was young and was all alone. Later on, she met such a scum and almost lost her life. It could be said that the heavens were very unfair to her. However, all those hardships were exchanged for everything she had today. Xiao Qing felt that it was worth it. Chapter 320. The few of them played outside for a day. On the way back, they passed by the martial arts practice field and actually met an acquaintance. This acquaintance was none other than the leader of the Dark Thorns, Zhu Mochin. At this moment, he was sparring with someone on the martial arts practice field. His ability to control metal with one hand was superb. His ability was to control metal, mainly to soften, harden, and detonate it. Usually, when fighting, he could throw the hidden weapons he carried with him. At the critical moment, these hidden weapons would become bombs. This was his main fighting method, but the battle in front of him was obviously just a spar. He couldn't attack too heavily, so he didn't use his killing move. Xiao Qing and the others were already preparing to go back, but seeing this, they couldn't stop and prepared to watch. There were only 2 people on Zhu Mochin's side. One was a girl with a ponytail, dressed very smart, with a lollipop in her mouth and a machine gun on her shoulder. The other was also an acquaintance of Xiao Qing. It was Qing Guanyan, who she saved in the vertical forest survival base. He was also Zhu Mochin's cousin. There were more people confronting them. At the front was a middle-aged man with a somewhat sinister temperament, and there were many people around him. When Xiao Qing and the others came over, Qing Guanyan's sharp eyes noticed them. He immediately jumped up and waved at Xiao Qing. "Sister Qing, come over here." When Xiao Qing walked over, she was keenly aware of the gazes cast over from the opposite side. There was a hint of ill intent in those gazes. "What are you doing?" Xiao Qing asked curiously after going over. Chen Guanyin immediately whispered, "My cousin is going to teach a few blind people a lesson." "Speaking of which, Sister Qing, why did you come to the capital?" "I have something to deal with." Xiao Qing smiled, but her eyes were locked on the people in front of her. Looking at the logo on their chests, they should be from the demonic mercenary group. The person in the lead also looked familiar. It seemed to be the leader of the demonic mercenary group or something. Anyway, she had seen this man at the scene of the friendly match with the island country. Qin Zishi followed Xiao Qing's gaze and said, "That's the leader of the demonic mercenary group, Wu Buping. I heard that the relationship between the demonic mercenary group and the dark thorn mercenary group has always been bad." The shammate girl next to him also came over and said casually, "It's not bad, it's very bad. Wu Buping's subordinates are all scumbags. They bully men and women, and they do everything. They have had many conflicts with our mercenary group. I heard that their mercenary group has a paranormal who broke through to the peak of level 4 2 days ago, so they came to pick a fight." Chen Guanyin nodded angrily. "Originally, I went with my cousin and Xiao Tao to exchange for supplies today, but I didn't expect to encounter the mad demon scum bullying others. I couldn't stand it, so I said a few words, and they came up to beat me. Then, naturally, my cousin beat them. After beating the small one, the big one came, and in the end, it became this situation." Xiao Qing nodded and then asked, "What do they want to do?" Wu Buping's words are quite pleasant to hear. "What do you mean by everyone meeting each other every day? What enmity and grudge? Just let the leader give some pointers to his members. Let's have a spar and stop when it's appropriate." Bah, to think that he can make it sound so righteous and awe-inspiring. "Truly shameless," the girl named Xiao Tao said angrily. Xiao Qing didn't say anything else. She just dismissed the idea of going back with her companions and sat down beside Chen Guanyin. Zhu Machin was very strong. The paranormal sent by the demonic mercenary group was quickly dealt with by him. He raised his hand and collected all the metal fragments on the ground. Next. Chapter 321. Wu Buping gave a signal with his eyes, and an ability user immediately jumped out. "I'll take you on, please enlighten me." The two of them quickly fought. Xiao Qing couldn't help but frown. Zhu Machin's strength was naturally strong, but he couldn't withstand so many people taking turns to fight him. Before she came, there must have been several people who had already exchanged pointers with Zhu Machin. If this continued, Zhu Machin would definitely be exhausted. However, Zhu Machin wasn't stupid. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, he definitely wouldn't use force. She was just worried that he would die trying to save face. After 4 more rounds, Zhu Machin was also a little tired. At that moment, a woman beside Wu Buping stood up. "Captain Zhu's strength is superb. We all admire you very much. Although this little sister knows that I'm not Captain Zhu's opponent, my hands are still itchy and I'd like to exchange pointers." As soon as she stood up, Xiao Qing's expression turned serious. This woman's strength wasn't low. She should be the ability user who had broken through. If Zhu Machin and this woman fought under normal circumstances, it was hard to say who would win or lose. But now, Zhu Machin had already exhausted a lot of his physical strength and ability. He definitely wasn't this woman's opponent. Xiao Qing felt that this exchange wasn't simple. She was afraid that there was some kind of conspiracy going on, and this conspiracy was definitely targeting Zhu Machin. She had a good relationship with Zhu Machin, and she didn't like the mad demon mercenary group, so she stood up. Wait, everyone has been exchanging pointers for so long. You guys aren't tired, but Zhu Mochin is. How long has he been standing on the stage? Why don't you take a rest and come back another day? Xiao Qing's words were very polite, but her tone wasn't. It was obvious that she was mocking Wu Buping. After taking turns to fight him for so long, he still didn't take the advantage. How could there be such a good thing in the world? The woman was stunned for a moment. Her expression was a little ugly as she said, "You can't say that. Captain Zhu is a famous expert in the capital. Today, you said you were exchanging pointers, but in fact, you were giving us pointers. Of course, if Captain Zhu is really tired so easily, then this little sister can't force you, right? Your words hurt my heart." Xiao Qing crossed her legs and said lazily, "Because you're strong, it's reasonable for you to take turns. Isn't this the same as you have money, so it's reasonable for you to share it with everyone? Isn't this theory as shameless?" As soon as Xiao Qing said this, the expressions of the people sitting there became ugly. However, Zhu Mochin was very quick-witted. "It just so happens that I'm also feeling a bit tired. It's getting late, so let's all go back to our homes. Those who need to eat, eat, and those who need to sleep, sleep." As he spoke, he let out a yawn, looking even more lazy than Xiao Qing. Wu Buping narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiao Qing. Why do I feel that she looks familiar? A nobody, not worth mentioning. Xiao Qing's eyes curved as she said softly, "Zhu Mochin's words are reasonable. Why don't we all go back to our homes? Those who need to eat, those who need to sleep, sleep, and recover our energy. We'll fight another day. You're too modest. If an expert who defeated Abe and Qing Shui in one fell swoop is considered a nobody, then what are we?" Wu Buping narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. When he recognized Xiao Qing, he looked at Xiao Qing with more respect. After all, Xiao Qing's strength wasn't low, and after such a long time, he didn't know how much she had improved. If Xiao Qing stood on Zhu Mochin's side, it would be quite troublesome for him. "You're the captain of one of the 4 great mercenary groups in the capital. And nobody like me doesn't dare compare to you." Xiao Qing said lazily, "Since Zhu Mochin is also tired, let's all part on good terms. It's also time for dinner." Chapter 322. The woman hurriedly said, "Let's fight one last round. It's just a spar, so it won't take up much time." Xiao Qing glanced at her indifferently, her tone somewhat sarcastic. "Do you not understand human speech? Zhu Mochin is tired and can't be bothered to play with you. I've seen people who want money and power, but I've never seen someone who wants to be beaten. Today, I've learned something new. You." The woman was clearly humiliated, and her face was red with anger. She said angrily, "Since Commander Zhu is tired, I won't disturb you any longer. However, I heard that you're also an expert, so why don't you give me some pointers?" She gritted her teeth as she said the last sentence. It was obvious that she hated Xiao Qing. Xiao Qing laughed. "Who are you to me? My daughter or my granddaughter? You want me to give you pointers, so I'll give you pointers. How can you be so shameless?" Zhu Mochin looked at Xiao Qing's poisonous tongue and inexplicably wanted to laugh. He only felt that Xiao Qing was too cute like this. The woman was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. Wu Buping narrowed his eyes like a good old man and said with a smile, "Leave some room for improvement in the future. It's better for your excellency to be a little more polite with your words. Speaking politely depends on the person, but since she wants my pointers, I don't mind giving her some pointers." Xiao Qing stood up from her seat and walked towards Zhu Mochin. "Can I borrow a seat?" Zhu Mochin didn't say anything and gave his seat to Xiao Qing. He looked like he was waiting to watch a good show as he sat to the side. He had an indescribable sense of confidence in Xiaoqing's strength. His intuition told him that the little girl in front of him could only be abused. The woman angrily walked onto the stage and said to Xiaoqing, "Then I'll have to ask your excellency to give me some pointers." Xiaoqing still nodded lazily. With her strength, she would definitely crush this woman and bully her for fun. Xiaoqing stood on the stage, and the vines drilled out, forming a shield made of vines. Then, Xiaoqing did not make any extra movements. As soon as the woman entered the battle, her aura changed a lot. At least, she looked a lot more serious. She raised her hand and countless wind blades stabbed towards Xiaoqing. Ding ding dang dang, ding ding dang dang, who knew how many wind blades landed on the shield? The densely packed sound was like a little song, causing one's scalp to go numb. But the problem was, after this wave of attack, everyone's eyes fell to the ground. Xiaoqing's vine shield was intact. She even yawned lazily and said, "Girl, you have speed, but you lack strength." She was really giving pointers. The woman looked at Xiaoqing coldly. She jumped up and pressed her hands directly on the vine shield in front of Xiaoqing. The energy fluctuation on her body was very intense. Rich wind power poured from her hands into the shield. Countless sharp wind blades formed behind her back. Once the shield was broken, they would quickly shoot out and stab Xiaoqing into a honeycomb. However, the result was that no matter how much power she poured into the shield, she could not shake Xiaoqing's shield. Her face immediately became very ugly. The wind blades behind her fell, but they still could not pierce through the shield. Still not enough strength. Xiaoqing sighed and said hypocritically, "With this strength, I'm afraid it can only be used to kill women." "You!" The woman's eyes were especially wide. Xiaoqing even felt that the corners of her eyes were about to crack. Her eyes were full of naked murderous intent. In the next second, the countless wind blades stealthily changed their direction. After brushing past the shield, they actually seemed to have eyes as they turned and stabbed at Xiaoqing from behind. Chapter 323. Xiaoqing gently stamped her foot, and another shield rose behind her. The wind blades clanged against the shield, making a clear and pleasant sound, like playing the piano in a hurry. "You have the strength, but you lack accuracy." Xiaoqing raised her eyebrows and said. Although there was only a one-level difference between a level 4 and a level 5, the difference in strength was huge. Take the woman in front of her for example. She should be quite strong among level 4 paranormals, but Xiaoqing could play with her. The woman was probably irritated. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and the air around her surged. Xiaoqing could feel that she was accumulating strength. The next attack would not be easy to block. "Go to hell." The woman floated in the air. A ball of wind ability condensed in her hands, growing bigger and bigger until it finally turned into a huge ball that contained a tyrannical power. "Go to hell." The woman shouted silently. She pressed her hands down, and the ball hit the shield. Boom! With a loud bang, broken stones flew everywhere, and half of the huge platform was blown off. More importantly, even after the dust settled, Xiaoqing still hadn't moved an inch. She had an undamaged shield in front of her, and she looked extremely arrogant. Strength, speed, and accuracy. You have it all, but it's useless. The woman was so angry that her face turned pale. She had used her most powerful attack, but it could not even break the shield. A trace of viciousness flashed in her eyes. Suddenly, she reached out her hand and shouted deliberately, "Look at the wind blades." Then, she threw out a round thing. As soon as it landed, it exploded, and red smoke filled the air. You can block the wind blades, but what about the invisible poisonous smoke? As soon as the woman did that, several men stood up and looked at her with unkind eyes. How dare she use such a sneaky attack? Xiaoqing was also angry, because as soon as the red smoke came out, her vines withered a little. Because of this, the poisonous smoke was very powerful. However, no matter how powerful the poisonous smoke was, it had no effect on Xiaoqing, because she was not a human. However, Xiaoqing was irritated because the poisonous smoke was similar to a chemical weapon. It was also a kind of weapon against the natural order. She suddenly raised her hand, and countless vines passed through the smoke and finally formed a vine whip, which hit the woman's face quickly, accurately, and fiercely. There was a saying that you should not hit people in the face, but Xiaoqing wanted to hit her face. She wanted to hit her fiercely and mercilessly. The woman was completely unprepared. She did not expect Xiaoqing to fight back in this situation. Then, she was like a small spinning top, and was whipped. "Please show mercy," Wu Buping hurriedly said. It was not easy for him to cultivate this woman. If she was destroyed in Xiaoqing's hands, it would be terrible. Xiaoqing sneered. Before she stopped, she hit the woman hard again, and directly spun her out. How did the lyrics go? Spinning and jumping, I closed my eyes. That woman was spinning and jumping, I opened my eyes, and one of my front teeth was whipped out. In the end, she was like a dead dog, lying under the ring. Xiaoqing did not feel that she had hit too hard at all. She smiled lazily, and then said innocently, "Oh, I accidentally did not control my strength well." Then she said very hypocritically, "How is it? You're not dead, right?" The woman was so angry that her mouth was trembling. When she opened her mouth, she spat out another tooth and a lot of blood. Xiaoqing rolled up her sleeves and continued, "Oh, you're not dead, are you? Why are you vomiting blood? Did I not control my strength well and seriously injure you from thousands of miles away?" Wu Buping looked at the scene. If he did not stop Xiaoqing, his people would be humiliated by Xiaoqing to the point that they even thought of dying. So Wu Buping hurriedly said, "It's just a spar. Why do you have to do this? It was your people who threw the chemical weapon first, right? Could it be that I remembered wrongly?" Xiaoqing rolled her eyes and said, "I'm really sorry. I'm not the kind of person to go overboard when sparring. You didn't get hurt, right? This is really my fault. But you too, why do you have to ask me to teach you? It's fine if you want me to teach you, but at least get someone with thick skin to teach you. Look, your teeth are falling out. Don't touch my porcelain. Your teeth are falling out, and you're saying you're hurt." The woman was so angry by Xiaoqing's words that she almost vomited blood again. She gritted her teeth. "Xiaoqing, you and I can't live under the same sky." Wu Buping was still smiling, but his eyes were a little cold. After all, she was his people. He also lost face when she was bullied like this. Wu Buping immediately said, "You must be joking. No matter what, at least we won't try to scam you. Although little Chu is in the wrong, you still hit her a little too hard. How can you hit a girl in the face? It's just a spar. Don't go too far." Xiaoqing blinked her eyes and said innocently, "It's not my fault." At that time, the red mist was all over the sky. I couldn't even see a shadow. I just stretched out a vine and swung it. Who knew that it would hit her face? Even if you want to blame gravity, you can't blame me. She can only blame herself for reaping what she sowed. At worst, I'll give you some crystals and ask your subordinate to make a porcelain tooth. She's ugly to begin with, and now she looks even worse. As she spoke, Xiaoqing really took out a few crystals and threw them accurately at the woman's face. The woman was embarrassed on the spot. She was already ashamed and angry. After being humiliated to this extent by Xiao Qing's words, she rolled her eyes and fainted. Xiao Tao rolled on the side laughing. She pointed at Wu Booping and said, "Leader Wu," this time she fainted by herself. "Don't blame us. It's useless to try to scam her. We all saw it." Gu Pan Pan immediately said, "That's right. This person is too weak. How could she faint just like that? She's not really trying to scam us, is she?" After saying that, she patted her chest and looked like a scared baby. Chapter 324. The girls chattered amongst themselves. If the woman who had fainted heard them, she would probably wake up from anger. Even Wu Booping, who was known as the Smiling Tiger, could no longer maintain his smile. After slapping them in the face, Xiao Qing said, "It's getting late, so it's time to eat." Then, she led her companions and prepared to leave. It was as if she had brushed away her clothes, concealing her achievements and fame. Then, Zhu Machin said, "I'll treat you to a meal." Xiao Tao, who was standing off to the side, immediately cried out in surprise. Her short, wine-red hair trembled, fully expressing her surprise. "Heavens, boss, you're so stingy, but you're actually treating us. Don't tell me you're treating us to East Street's noodles." Zhu Machin immediately rolled his eyes. "Did I say I was going to treat you?" Xiao Tao was even more shocked. "Holy shit. Boss, are you not going to treat me?" They laughed and joked around, completely ignoring Wu Booping. It was no wonder that this smiling tiger, who was known throughout the capital, couldn't maintain his smile. His expression stiffened as he sat there for a long time. Only after Xiao Qing and the others had left did he suddenly slam the armrest. The entire seat was instantly sealed by cold air. It cracked, and finally, with a crack, it shattered into pieces. Because he hadn't reacted in time, he sat down on the ground. Someone immediately snickered. Wu Booping glanced over, his face ashen, as if he had just discovered his wife cheating on him. "Let's go." Wu Booping gritted his teeth. He had originally planned on plotting against Zhu Machin, but now he had been slapped in the face by Xiao Qing. However, his heart was full of vigilance. He really couldn't figure out the depth of Xiao Qing's strength, because the last woman to appear today was already at the peak of the 4th rank. However, Xiao Qing had played around with her like she was toying with her, and she had beaten her up like she was beating up a grandson. Of course, after the woman had taken out that medicine, she had thought that she would win and had let down her guard. However, Xiao Qing's strength was definitely terrifying. This was evident from the fact that she was able to block all of the woman's attacks with a single vine shield. As Wu Booping walked back, he pondered with a gloomy face. He touched his chin and thought in horror, could Xiao Qing be a 5th-level paranormal? Thinking of this, he immediately shivered. No, the highest level that had appeared so far was only the peak of level 4. Level 5 had only appeared among zombies and mutated animals and plants. There shouldn't be anyone who had broken through to the 5th rank yet, but people always thought of the worst. Wu Booping ordered in a low voice, "Before Xiao Qing leaves the capital, temporarily give up on the plans against Zhu Machin. Send someone to keep an eye on Xiao Qing. If there are any movements, immediately report back to me." "Yes." His subordinate hurriedly replied. On the other side, Qin Zishi sent a message back to her grandfather, saying that she wouldn't be coming home for dinner tonight as someone was treating her. Then, the group of people followed Zhu Machin out to eat. Zhu Machin wasn't stingy this time. The place he was treating them to wasn't a restaurant, but a hotel. Actually, calling it a hotel wasn't quite right. At this scale, it was at most a small restaurant owned by his family. In order to prove that he wasn't being stingy, Zhu Machin hurriedly said, this restaurant's lady boss's cooking is very good. It's much better than those 5-star or 6-star hotels. I definitely won't forget after eating here once. Zhu Machin was probably a regular here. As soon as he walked in, the waiter said familiarly, "Big Brother Chin, you're here. How many of you are here? I'll arrange a seat for you and then go call the lady boss. She's in the kitchen right now. It's just the few of us. You can arrange it as you see fit." Zhu Machin waved his hand casually, then said, "If there's no other choice, we can go to the backyard." Chapter 325. With so many people, their restaurant didn't have such a large private room. The waiter hurriedly said, "Then let's go to the backyard. I'll get someone to tidy it up first." Then, he ran off to tidy up the backyard. The backyard was quite large. Several waiters brought over a large round table and some stools. After they sat down around the large round table, the waiter came over to make tea before going to find the lady boss. The lady boss here is very good at cooking casseroles and all kinds of meat dishes. She's from the Northeast, so her alcohol tolerance is quite high. After Zhu Machin sat down, he said, "Basically, whenever I come back from a mission, I come here to eat a meal. I never get tired of it." "Boss, are you really not trying to hide how stingy you are?" Xiao Tao looked at Zhu Machin suspiciously. Zhu Machin's skin was quite thick, and he had no intention of replying. It was obvious that he was prepared to skip this topic. The lady boss quickly came over. The lady boss looked to be around 34 or 35 years old. She was a charming middle-aged woman, and her enchanting eyes made her seem especially sexy. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's Captain Zhu. How do you have time to come here?" The lady boss seemed to be very familiar with Zhu Machin. She didn't hold back when she teased him. "2 days ago, someone told me that he was incredibly busy." Zhu Machin hurriedly said, "He was busy 2 days ago, but hasn't he already been busy?" The lady boss glanced at him disdainfully, then asked, "What do you want to eat this time?" Zhu Machin naturally let Xiao Qing order. He was the one who was treating, and Xiao Qing was too embarrassed to order all of his favorite dishes. Thus, after ordering 2 dishes, she didn't order anything else. Zhu Machin ordered a few more dishes, then said, "Don't forget to order a pot of your specialty fish head tofu soup." Only then did the lady boss wave her hand and take the menu to cook. After the lady boss left, there was no one else around. The few of them began to chat. The red smoke that woman threw out this time can't be underestimated. "I just don't know how much of this medicine Wu Buping has, or if he has any other types of medicine. Everyone has seen that the effects of this medicine should be quite good. If it's not some kind of heaven-defying poison, it should be quite suitable for us," Zhu Machin analyzed. None of the people present were fools. They had already thought it through. Wu Buping definitely had more than one type, not to mention the quantity. For example, although the effects of the red smoke were unclear, Xiao Qing knew that it was indeed very powerful to be able to make her vines almost wither the moment they came into contact with it. "What I'm most worried about is their experiments," Xiao Qing said with a heavy expression. It was fine if it was an ordinary experiment, but if they used humans to test the effect, it was equivalent to a human experiment. Chemical weapons were very lethal, but their impact on the environment was very serious. What's more, they could even spread diseases like plagues. Just like some of the things that Japan researched in the past, in fact, Japan didn't stop researching these things during peacetime. Previously, Xiao Qing's army had bombed a certain type of research institute. Xiao Qing had also seen with her own eyes that the people who were poisoned as experimental subjects were miserable beyond words. Now that it was the end of the world, whether it was morality or law, those restrictions were very weak. It was inevitable that some people would do unforgivable things. Xiao Qing couldn't help but be a little worried. They shouldn't dare to commit a crime and conduct such an experiment. However, they should have developed a lot of common chemical weapons. That's why they had the confidence to plot against me. Zhu Machun rubbed his chin and said lazily, Wu Buping is very ambitious and has no conscience. If he continues to develop like this, it's not certain whether he can do such a thing. Chapter 326. It's better to be on guard. Xiao Qing nodded, then said, My vines cut off a bit of that red mist. Do you want to take it back and study it? Of course. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated, Zhu Machun said in surprise. Zhu Machun exclaimed in pleasant surprise. Xiao Qing stretched out her hand, and a withered vine appeared in her palm. It's hollow. The mist is inside. After saying that, Xiao Qing threw the vine to Zhu Machun. Naturally, she also kept some for herself. When she went back, she would let Yan Qiu study its composition. While the group was chatting, the lady boss began to serve the dishes. The dishes she made were already very good in terms of taste. Moreover, they looked, smelled, and looked very appetizing at first glance. 2 cold dishes. Everyone, eat first. The hot dishes will be served soon. The waiter was also a tactful person. After serving the dishes, he left. The rest of the group continued to guess. Xiao Qing was actually quite curious. By the way, why is Wu Buping targeting you? Among the 4 mercenary groups in the capital, our group's overall strength should be the weakest. After all, we walk the path of the elite. Our members are extremely few, and we rely on high-end martial arts to support us. Compared to the mercenary groups that have hundreds or thousands of members, we have lost a lot in terms of the number of members. When Zhu Machun said this, he didn't seem dispirited at all. On the contrary, he looked very proud. What he said was true. His mercenary group, which had a small number of members, was almost equivalent to a small team of ability users. Yet, it had actually suppressed several large mercenary groups with hundreds of members and become one of the top 4 mercenary groups in the capital. It was indeed something to be proud of. Wu Buping is a very ambitious person. In the beginning, he tried to poach my members, but my members were quite reliable and didn't get poached. Later, his mercenary group gradually grew, and from poaching, he developed to wanting to annex us and become the #1 mercenary group in the capital. After all, persimmons are soft persimmons. When he said this, Zhu Machun laughed. He actually said that I'm not a soft persimmon, but compared to the other 2 of the 4 mercenary groups, we really are soft persimmons. Xiao Qing couldn't help but laugh. She lowered her voice and said, So Wu Buping has been targeting you. You can put it that way. Especially recently, their regiment has had experts breaking through one after another. Their ambition has become even more uncontrollable. This time, their attempt to make a move on me is a signal. Zhu Machun narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, I estimate that in a few days, they will make a move against our mercenary group. Although Wu Buping's ambition isn't small, there's also a huge problem. His mercenary group has too many members and is too messy. It's not pure, and its cohesiveness isn't as good as the other 3 groups. To think about it, he needs to get rid of the impurities first, and kick out some unqualified members. However, Qin Zishi analyzed in a low voice. Mad Demon's reputation is too bad. It's all because of those low-quality members. If he blindly indulges them, then he definitely won't be able to achieve great things. Xiao Qing rubbed her chin. That's not necessarily true. After all, Wu Buping's leadership ability and strength are both quite good. It's a pity that he's a bit blind. If he was given a chance, Mad Demon might actually be able to climb up step by step. Forget about it. Let's not talk about this and ruin everyone's appetite. Xiao Qing picked up a small piece of pickled vegetable and said, "Let's eat first." The lady boss's cooking was indeed quite good, and her alcohol tolerance was also quite high. After all the dishes were served, she accompanied everyone to drink, and half of the wine went into her stomach. Chapter 327. The landlady was very straightforward. She took out all the wine she had collected, and even Xiao Qing drank a little. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they really went back to their own homes. Xiao Qing and the others also went back with Qin Zishi. When they got back, they saw Grandpa Qin sitting at the door, looking at the garden in loneliness. Little Baozi immediately pounced on the old man. The old man's loneliness was immediately swept away. "Oh, you're back." He caught little Baozi and pinched his belly. "Let Grandpa see if you're full." The food this time was very delicious. The little bun's belly was round. Although he would vomit later, he was still very happy. "Baby, you ate a lot. I brought some food for Grandpa." He took out a candy figurine and handed it to the old man. The Tang man had obviously made the figurine based on him. It was like a miniature version of the little bun. The old man couldn't bear to eat it. He held it in his hand and looked at it. He couldn't stop smiling. "Baby, you still remember to bring something for Grandpa." "Of course I have to share good things. I have to give Grandpa a share." The little bun shook his head. He had never had any relatives in the same generation as his grandparents. Suddenly, he met an old man who was so nice to him. Moreover, this old man was the grandfather of his friends. He immediately cherished him. He also knew that he would have to go home in less than 2 days. He would have to leave his friends and Grandpa. The reluctance in his heart made him feel closer to his friends and Grandpa. After the group went back to their own rooms, especially Yan Qiue. She directly took the smoke from Xiao Qing and went to do an experiment. Xiao Qing, Qin Zishi, and the pair who looked more like Grandpa and Qin Zishi were left in the living room downstairs. "When are you going to leave?" the old man asked. He wasn't driving them away. It was just a normal question. "Tomorrow or the day after." Xiao Qing thought for a while and said, 3 days at the latest. It depended on how much she could torture someone in 3 days. "You'd better not leave Jingdu for the next few days. In the past 2 days, there have been 8 consecutive zombie attacks. 2 survivor bases have been destroyed because of the zombie siege." The old man frowned and said, "Moreover, the zombie tide hasn't completely stopped yet. If you return in the next 2 days, you may encounter danger." Zombie uprising. It's not a full moon night these 2 days. Xiao Qing was a little surprised. Zombie riots usually happened on the night of the full moon, because on this day of the month, the zombies were the most active and violent. Even she was inevitably affected. Normally, unless there was a zombie king leading the zombies, it would be very difficult to cause a zombie tide. How could there be so many zombie tides? The old man hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice and said, "I don't know the specifics, but I'm sure that this zombie attack was premeditated. 8 riots, all the way from a place slightly further away from the capital. Several bases were heavily damaged, and 2 were completely destroyed. Now, we receive requests for help every day." The old man said uneasily, normal zombie hordes wouldn't be able to threaten the capital. The height of the city wall alone is enough for those zombies to torment. But this time, there are at least 2 zombie kings leading the hordes. Anyway, it's very dangerous. Xiao Qing nodded her head. It seemed that she had woken up from her beautiful dream of leaving early. However, that was also good. She could use this opportunity to punish a certain scum. After chatting for a while, the old man held the little bun in his left hand and his grandson in his right. He went to the practice area outside and called a few people over. Although the old man was over 50 years old, he still had his strength. Xiaoqing was even taught a game by him, and it ended in a tie. Then, the old man took his two precious grandsons with him. She went upstairs to bed. Xiaoqing, on the other hand, didn't sleep. She found a place with a good view and sat down. Then, she began to organize all the information she had received over the past few days. The first thing she needed to do was to get rid of Lin Qifan. This was the most important thing. Before she got rid of Lin Qifan, she wasn't going to leave the capital. The second thing was about the Mad Demon Mercenary Group. This time, she had thoroughly offended Wu Buping. However, Xiaoqing wasn't afraid. Instead, she was considering whether or not she should help Zhu Mochen get rid of the Mad Demon Mercenary Group. To be honest, she didn't like the Mad Demon Mercenary Group. It was one thing for them to want all kinds of people, but they even wanted animals and scum. Even if they were foreigners, she had heard about the Mad Demon Mercenary Group's misdeeds. Bullying the weak was the most common thing. Things like bullying men and women, and even killing people for their belongings were all very common. Moreover, the Mad Demon Mercenary Group was very united. Basically, if you beat one up, you would attract a bunch of others. Therefore, people with some strength were too lazy to provoke the Mad Demon Mercenary Group. And those who didn't have strength could only be bullied. Now that she had been dragged into this matter, she couldn't just stay out of it. Instead of waiting for the Mad Demon to take revenge, she might as well make the first move. No matter what, the one who made the first move had the advantage. The third thing was about the zombie uprising. If the zombie uprising didn't stop in a short period of time, they definitely wouldn't be able to return to S-City Survivor Base. From what the old man said, the zombie uprising this time wasn't as simple as it seemed. After sorting out her thoughts, Xiaoqing slowly went upstairs and prepared to rest. For the first time, Yan Qiue wasn't in her room. Only her heir Dai was lying on the bed and rolling around. Xiaoqing knew that Yan Qiue was studying the fog. She took off her clothes and fell on the bed. She turned over and over again. She wasn't used to it. Chapter 328. Xiaoqing tossed and turned in bed until midnight. Yan Qiue ran up with dark circles under his eyes. When he reached the door, he immediately lightened his footsteps, afraid that he would startle Xiaoqing. Xiaoqing said, "Come in. If you don't sleep, I'll go and urge you." When Yan Qiue heard this, fireworks exploded in his heart. He first took a quick shower and then crawled into bed. "I've already figured it out." Xiaoqing was stunned. She thought it would take 2 days. That thing is indeed not a good thing. It's a kind of highly poisonous plant with a lot of chemical ingredients. It will corrode the skin and flesh of people once it comes in contact with it. More importantly, this thing can get into people's bodies and corrode their internal organs. At first, it can't be detected, and people will only feel a dull pain in their stomachs. After a long time, most of the internal organs will be corroded, and people will die. Yan Qiue narrowed his eyes and whispered, "It seems that it also has the effect of reducing the activity of supernatural abilities. Your vines are too overbearing. They have melted most of the mist. That's all I can find out." Xiaoqing couldn't help but frown. "Is there a way to restrain it? I'm still studying it." Yan Qiue was a little embarrassed. He quickly raised his hand. "Give me 2 or 3 days. I will definitely find a way to restrain this thing. Your health is the most important thing. It's already midnight. go to sleep first. Xiao Qing suppressed the slight uneasiness in her heart and whispered. Okay. Yan Qiue was like a spoiled little wife. He obediently shrank into the bed and then quietly moved forward. He put his arms around Xiao Qing's waist and whispered, Qing, are you worried about me? Is that why you haven't fallen asleep? Xiao Qing was silent for a long time. She didn't know if it was because she was exposed or something else. After a while, she whispered, go to sleep. Seeing that Xiao Qing didn't want him to let go, Yan Qiue didn't want to pretend to be obedient and fell asleep. Early the next morning, Xiao Qing gave the last of the fog and the vines to Old Master Qin. She believed that Old Master Qin would definitely be able to find something. After all, no matter how strong she was not as powerful as the Qin family in terms of investigating things. Besides, the Qin family was a powerful family in the capital. If Mad Demon really did something unforgivable, she would have to inform the powerful family when dealing with this local snake. He had to be a polite and good child. Of course, if the Qin family was willing to help and deal with Mad Demon, it would save Xiao Qing a lot of trouble. Old Master Qin wasn't an unreasonable person. After hearing Xiao Qing's simple explanation, his expression immediately turned serious. He called Father Qin over and asked him to take the item for a second appraisal. Although according to Xiao Qing, this thing was a chemical weapon, it wasn't too harmful. However, some people couldn't help but touch certain taboos after tasting the benefits. If it was confirmed that this thing was indeed a chemical weapon, he would send people to secretly investigate Mad Demon Mercenary Group. Even if Mad Demon Mercenary Group didn't do anything, he would send people to monitor them for a period of time. After dealing with this matter, Xiao Qing felt a lot more at ease. She patted her paws and went to do what she needed to do. The moment she stepped out of the door, she received a message from Xiao Tong using her spiritual power. Lin Qifan was here. Because Xiao Qing and Old Master Qin were discussing business, Little Bun went to the door to play. He played the game of throwing a ball out and letting Yiya pick it up. He was having a lot of fun. Yiya was pitiful. This time, Little Bun threw a ball that was about the size of a basketball. Every time Little Bun threw it out, it would bounce the ball back. Chapter 329. After playing for a day, his scalp would probably be 3 layers thick. At this moment, Lin Qifan came over. He caught the ball and said to the Little Bun with a smile, I'll play with you. Little Bun had seen Lin Qifan before and didn't have a good impression of him. Mommy didn't like him, so he was a bad guy. He frowned and pouted. Give me back the ball. Lin Qifan wasn't angry. He chuckled and said, Look, no one is playing with you. Can't I play with you? I don't want you to play with me. Little Bun put his hands on his waist and said angrily, I have Yiya to play with me. You're a bad guy. How am I a bad guy? Lin Qifan asked Little Bun sadly. Little Bun paused for a moment and said, Mommy doesn't like you, so you're a bad guy. Lin Qifan sighed and walked over with the ball. He bent down and said sadly, Actually, I'm not a bad guy. Speaking of which, you should call me Daddy. Your mommy and I are husband and wife. Husband and wife, did you know that? Lin Qifan took out a photo. In the photo, Xiao Qing was wearing a wedding dress. She was holding a bouquet of flowers and standing next to Lin Qifan. At that time, Xiao Qing's eyes were filled with gentleness. Just a faint smile was enough to warm anyone's heart. Little Bun was shocked. After a while, he said, Impossible. Why is it impossible? Lin Qifan frowned slightly. How could a normal child be so hard to fool? Mommy said it was spicy. My daddy is already dead. Little Bun said seriously, so you're definitely not my daddy. You must be a bad guy who came to lie to me. Lin Qifan froze and lowered his eyes. He was already very handsome. Otherwise, Xiaoqing wouldn't have taken a liking to him. At that moment, his eyelashes trembled and his voice trembled. So, she hates me that much. The little bun didn't know what to do. After a while, he poked Lin Qifan. Hey, you're not crying, are you? Lin Qifan lowered his eyes and pretended to tell little bun a story. In Lin Qifan's story, he became a man who was deeply in love with Xiaoqing. Fu Jinling, on the other hand, became a vicious mistress. She liked him and confessed to him, but he rejected her. Then, her love turned to hatred and she attacked Xiaoqing, causing Xiaoqing to have a miscarriage and almost die. In the end, Xiaoqing misunderstood that he had done something wrong to Xiaoqing. Coincidentally, the apocalypse happened, so the two of them were separated. In short, in the story, he was a good man who was affectionate and loyal. In short, all the mistakes were Fu Jinling's. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the little bun said decisively, "That won't happen. Mama said that I'm her biological son." Lin Qifan was stunned by the little bun's ability to grasp the main point. He said, "That's not the main point. The main point is that I'm not a bad person." Little bun grabbed Yinya's ear and said in boredom, "Then you can explain to Mama. If you are right, Mama will definitely forgive you. If you are wrong, Mama will not forgive you. How simple is that? But your mother won't listen to my explanation." Lin Qifan sighed and continued, "She hates me to the core now. I can explain for you." The little bun tilted his head and said seriously, "Okay, you can return the ball to me. I'll go back and tell Mama." Lin Qifan didn't dare to let the little bun talk to Xiaoqing about this. The little bun didn't know what happened that year, so it didn't matter if he made things up. Xiaoqing knew very well. Chapter 330. If the little bun went back and told his mother, wouldn't that expose everything he had done? Then, not only would he not be able to get Xiaoqing's forgiveness from the little bun, but it would also backfire on him. Hence, Lin Qifan hurriedly said, "Wait, don't tell your mother, okay? Otherwise, she will definitely think that I deliberately approached you." "Didn't you deliberately approach me?" The little bun tilted his head, looking innocent. "If I didn't approach you deliberately, did you meet me because you got lost?" Lin Qifan was speechless. Who gave birth to this child? Why was he so difficult to deal with? He forced a smile and said, "No, I mean, your mother will be angry. She might even be angry at you." The little bun said seriously, "Don't worry. My mother won't be angry at me. She loves me the most." Lin Qifan was speechless. There was no way to continue the conversation. He racked his brains and said, What I mean is, this is a secret between the two of us. Don't tell anyone. Good children won't tell anyone. But why would I have a secret with a bad person?" The little bun widened his eyes and said fiercely, "Only bad children have secrets with bad people, so all his words were for nothing?" Lin Qifan felt helpless. He scratched his head and said, "How about this? I'll treat you to something. Don't tell anyone about our secret, okay?" Lin Qifan was even prepared to hear this. Who wants to eat something given by a bad person? What if you want to harm me? Then, the little bun suddenly changed his tone and nodded. He said seriously, "You don't have to treat me to something. Play ball with me. Then, I won't tell my mother." Lin Qifan was speechless. Everything seemed to have returned to square one. Then, he saw the little bun take the ball from his hand and throw it away. He looked at him with his big, sparkling eyes. There were 3 words written in his eyes: "Go and pick it up." The veins on his forehead bulged. Only dogs would pick things up, okay? However, in order to keep the little bun's secret and to continue his conspiracy, Lin Qifan gritted his teeth and picked up the ball. Most importantly, after he picked up the ball, Little Bun exclaimed, "Why isn't it faster than Yiya?" Yiya, who was sitting at the side, nodded. The rabbit's face was solemn, and there was even a hint of mockery. "That's right, you're not as fast as me, a rabbit." Lin Qifan wanted to kill someone. He forced a smile and passed the ball to Little Bun. After Little Bun received the ball, he threw it out without a word and looked at Lin Qifan expectantly. Lin Qifan ran around expressionlessly. In the end, he felt like he had nothing left to live for, so he quickly found an excuse to leave. When he was about to leave, Little Bun had a reluctant look on his face. "You must come and play with me some other day." Lin Qifan agreed and left in a sorry state. After he left, Little Bun clapped his hands and carried Yiya home with a look of disdain. Actually, Xiaoqing had been watching from the side for the second half of the journey. However, she had been hiding so Lin Qifan didn't see her. When Little Bun entered the house, he saw Xiaoqing standing at the door. Little Bun immediately pounced on her. "Mommy, are you done talking with Grandpa?" Xiaoqing rubbed Little Bun's head. "Yes. Baby, did you have fun?" "I had fun. Mommy, let me tell you. An idiot came today." Little Bun immediately told Xiaoqing about Lin Qifan. Chapter 331. Xiaoqing laughed. She lowered her voice and asked, "Didn't you promise him that you wouldn't tell me? Why are you telling me now?" "Mama, I was lying to that bad guy," Little Bun said proudly. "He must be lying, and he must be up to no good. Otherwise, why would he sneak up on me? My baby is so smart." Xiaoqing kissed Little Bun, then narrowed her eyes and smiled. Lin Qifan had always thought that he was very smart. He didn't expect that he would be fooled by a child like Little Bun without realizing it. Thinking about how Little Bun fooled Lin Qifan like he was walking a dog, Xiaoqing felt inexplicably happy. "Yes, baby, you did the right thing. What do you want to eat for lunch?" "Braised rabbit head," Little Bun said excitedly. "I want the super spicy one." A certain rabbit in his arms immediately trembled and quickly curled itself into a ball, burying its head between its two paws to prevent its master from seeing its rabbit head. "Children can't eat too spicy food." Xiaoqing sighed and smiled. "But you can eat a little tonight." "Mama, the spicy one is the best." Little Bun leaned forward and took another bite. Xiaoqing's face was covered in saliva. While they were having a good time, Lin Qifan sighed all the way as he left. In his opinion, a child who was at most 4 or 5 years old would be easy to fool. He didn't expect Little Bun to be so hard to deal with. He originally thought that he would be able to deal with Little Bun in one meeting today, but he didn't expect that he would only be able to get to know him so soon. Based on this speed, he was afraid that 3 to 5 days wouldn't be enough for him to get Little Bun. Lin Qifan was afraid that Xiaoqing wouldn't care about their relationship and directly make a move on him. If that happened, he wouldn't even have time to prepare before he could meet God. Thinking of this, he hated Fu Jinling very much. If Fu Jinling hadn't seduced him at that time, if Fu Jinling hadn't tempted him with those things, he wouldn't have cheated on Xiaoqing. If he hadn't cheated on Xiaoqing, he wouldn't have had to struggle in this post-apocalyptic world. He wouldn't have had to deal with those women, and he wouldn't have had to look at other people's faces. If he hadn't cheated on Xiaoqing, he would be the one living in that luxurious villa with Xiaoqing now. Lin Qifan never considered who was the one at fault. As the saying goes, it takes two to clap. If he wasn't greedy, if he wasn't delusional, if he wasn't cruel and heartless, he wouldn't have ended up like this. There would always be some people like this. When they made a mistake, they would never think about their own mistakes, but how to push the blame onto others. For example, Lin Qifan. Lin Qifan left with a heart full of sorrow. Xiao Qing left with a heart full of sorrow. This time, she went out with Qin Zishi. Father Qin had a bodyguard team, and the members were all powerful paranormals selected from the army. These paranormals had the perseverance and loyalty of soldiers, plus the obedience and unity of soldiers. They were much stronger than ordinary teams of paranormals who were scattered like sand. It could be said that Father Qin and his 100 or so people could take on a large mercenary group without any problem. This time, they went out because of the zombie attack. As Father Qin's son, Qin Zishi had returned from his training and had a certain level of strength. Therefore, Father Qin wanted to train Qin Zishi, so he let him take part of the bodyguard team to investigate the cause of the zombie attack. Chapter 332. In fact, Mr. Qin was worried. On one hand, he wanted to train his son, but on the other hand, he wanted to go with them. In the end, he couldn't because of his busy schedule. Xiao Qing naturally had to go with them. First of all, they lived in the Qin family because of Qin Zishi. If Qin Zishi went out, they would feel uncomfortable living in Qin Zishi's house alone. Second of all, it was not safe to go out. Xiao Qing was still worried about her son's friends. Besides, she also wanted to find out how the zombie tide was formed, so she went with them. Mr. Qin was worried about his son, so he sent nearly 20 superpowered people to be his son's bodyguards. In addition, there was Lan, who had a space superpower and was responsible for carrying supplies. It was a painstaking effort to ensure that his son could live well outside and achieve the effect of training. However, the little bun didn't go with them this time. He was asked to stay by Old Master Qin. Old Master Qin said that the little bun was still a child. He would be traumatized if he came into contact with zombies every day. Besides, it was so dangerous outside. It was better to leave the little bun with him. He promised to make the little bun gain a few pounds. Xiao Qing thought about it and agreed. It was much safer for the little bun to stay in the capital than to take risks with her, so she agreed. The little bun originally wanted to follow Xiao Qing, but he was tempted by Old Master Qin's army of desserts. In the end, he waved his hand happily and sent his mother away. Xiao Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She, his mother, was not as important as a few boxes of desserts. After leaving the little bun, they gathered and left the capital. Xiao Qing looked at the group of bodyguards and felt a little melancholy and nostalgia. She believed that Yan Hanqing would feel the same way. After leaving the capital, they first rushed to the place where the latest zombie tide broke out. When they stopped for lunch at noon, the scene was very different. Xiao Qing set up the grill and began to barbecue meat. The bodyguards were more pitiful. They were all provided with the same kind of compressed biscuits for lunch. Eating one biscuit and drinking water was equivalent to eating several bowls of rice. If there was no comparison, there would be no harm. The group of people looked at the barbecued meat in full swing, and their saliva dripped down. Their salary wasn't low, but eating barbecued meat every day was a luxury for them. After all, they still had to feed their families. Usually, they would eat the canteen food, the kind that had no oil at all, only a little bit of diced meat, and not many vegetable leaves. Only when he received his monthly salary would he be willing to go out and find a restaurant to have a meal. Then, he looked at Xiao Qing and the others. Judging from their skillful postures, rich ingredients, and complete props, it was obvious that they often received special treatment. How could they not be envious? Originally, Xiao Qing wanted to grill more and invite them to eat together. After all, they would be her teammates for a long time. Naturally, he had to be nicer to his teammates. Then, when Xiaoqing was about to get up and invite them to eat, she heard someone murmur, "Rich people are really different. What time is it now? Still so pretentious. You really think you're the boss?" She sat down again. If they didn't appreciate it, how could she put her hot face on their cold butt? She wasn't asking for it. So, Xiaoqing only called Qin Zishi and Lan to eat. After the apocalypse, they ate barbecued meat the most. Because the ingredients were easy to find and it was convenient to eat, they could grill meat while eating. It was quite fun. Chapter 333. Since they ate a lot, they were naturally more proficient in cooking. Xiaoqing was slicing the meat with a knife. Yan Hanqing brushed the meat with oil and skewered it into skewers and began to roast it. Then, a row of people squatted next to them, each with a bowl in their hands. Because there were not many iron skewers, Yan Hanqing took off the roasted meat every time he finished roasting a few skewers and put them in their bowls. They were so happy. The members of the escort team on the other side could only gnaw on dry biscuits. Looking at them eating barbecued meat, the aroma of barbecued meat lingered at the tip of their nostrils, and the tasteless biscuits in their mouths. It was like chewing wax, and they almost burst into tears. Xiaoqing wasn't the only one who heard what one of their team members said. Because his voice wasn't very soft, as long as one's 5 senses were slightly sharper, they would be able to hear it. Furthermore, everyone present was a psychic, so who would be able to miss this sentence? This was also the reason why Qin Zishi sat down and began to eat with only Alan. If it were any other day, and no one said such unpleasant words, Qin Zishi would definitely discuss with Xiaoqing to roast more meat and share it with them. After all, they were all on the same side. However, they did not expect that someone had already said such words. If they still did so, they would be slapping their own faces. Xiaoqing and the others did not jump up and scold them, which was already very restrained. Qin Zishi was also very angry and embarrassed about this. After all, these members of the escort team were his father's subordinates, and they might become his subordinates in the future. In the end, they humiliated him. It was fine if they humiliated him, but they also mocked Xiaoqing and the others. This was intolerable. As for the members of the escort team, they were indeed a little resentful because when they went out, Qin Zishi's father said that Xiaoqing and the others were all Qin Zishi's friends, and asked the escort team to take care of them along the way. Therefore, the escort team spontaneously thought that Xiaoqing and the others were also the second generation of a rich family, and because of their family's wealth or power, they were lawless. Just like this time, their mission was to go out and explore the source of the zombie attack. This was a very difficult mission, and they had to protect Qin Zishi. In the end, the rich second generation insisted on following them, increasing the difficulty of their mission. At that time, there might even be people sacrificing themselves. Naturally, they were unhappy. Of course, although they were unhappy, no one would take the initiative to ruin Xiaoqing's reputation. Most of the people in this group were veterans. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that they shouldn't offend people casually. However, when it was time to eat, Xiaoqing and the others barbecued meat and drank beer, which not only aroused their resentment, but also aroused their jealousy. "Why are we sitting here eating biscuits while you guys are eating barbecue? They're just a bunch of second-generation rich kids who don't know how to differentiate between food and drink. They want to accept our protection and come out on a mission, but they still want to enjoy themselves like masters." That was why some people couldn't stand it and secretly complained. Xiaoqing could guess a little bit, but it was their business what they thought. She didn't need to explain, but she didn't have a broad mind to ignore the sarcasm. Since they all gave her the cold shoulder, she didn't need to stick to them. They could just live their own lives. As a result, the atmosphere suddenly became cold and awkward. After lunch, Xiaoqing rummaged through the inventory and took out a lot of fruits to share with her friends, especially Qin Zishi and Xiao Tong. They were still children, and it was very important for them to take vitamins and so on. Chapter 334. Once she did that, some people found her an eyesore and said sarcastically, "Hey, even if we work hard for the rest of our lives, we still can't catch up to her. She has a good father." Another person whispered, "Keep your voice down. What if she hears you and gives you a hard time? They all have powerful backgrounds. It's easy for them to kill a little bumpkin like you." That's right. I'm afraid that in their eyes, you're not even worth as much as that bunch of grapes. Immediately, another person laughed. The more they talked, the louder their voices became. They seemed to be quite unscrupulous. Qin Zishi's face was cold to begin with. Now, he flew into a rage. He slammed the table and said coldly, "All of you, get back. We're not far from the capital now. It won't take much of your time. You'll arrive in the capital in the time it takes to gossip." The group of ruffians immediately fell silent. The captain saw that Qin Zishi was angry and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. "Don't be angry, young master. They're just a little talkative. I've already lectured them several times. The general is worried about you going out alone, so he asked us to follow and protect you. I definitely won't let them talk anymore." Qin Zishi sneered and raised his chin. Then, he said, "You're all ability users. You're all very capable. Do you all think you're very powerful? Do you think that I need your protection, so you don't have to take me seriously?" As he spoke, the temperature in his voice took a sharp turn. "I'm telling you now. All of you, get back. This is an order. I don't need your protection." The ruffians looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. If they dared to go back now, their legs would be broken by Father Qin. Leaving the only heir of the Qin family in the wilderness and going back alone, wasn't that courting death? Even if they wanted to die, they shouldn't do that. The captain saw that Qin Zishi was really angry and hurriedly said, "Young master, this is our fault. I apologize to you and everyone on behalf of them. But we really can't go back. Our mission is to protect you. You guys are protecting me." Qin Zishi was expressionless. Her serious baby face actually looked a little murderous. "Previously, I tolerated it for Dad's sake and didn't stoop to your level. I didn't expect you to become more and more daring. Then I'll be honest. If I really encounter a problem that I can't solve on my own, do you think you guys can protect me?" He glanced around and said, "You don't believe me. All right, I'll let you try today. Whoever is more confident in themselves can come and compare notes with me. If no one can beat me, then all of you will apologize and scram back to the capital. If someone wins, then I won't say another word. Even if you curse me on the spot, I'll endure it." Those ruffians who had their heads lowered didn't feel that they were in the wrong. They were just worried that they would be chased back and run into the furious Father Qin, so they didn't dare to speak. Upon hearing Qin Zishi's words, the group of ruffians immediately beamed with joy and began to chime in one after another. "Young master, that won't do. What if you get injured with your small body? The general will kill me." "That's right. Young master, don't try to be brave. Just take it that we were wrong. Let it go. We'll definitely hold it in the future." "That's right. Young master, don't be angry. Just take it that we were wrong. We'll all apologize." "That's right. We don't dare to compare notes with you. Otherwise, we'll be cut up by the general when we go back." The corners of Qin Zishi's mouth curled up. From the angle of his eyes to the angle of his mouth, he looked very much like Xiao Qin when she was mocking people. His voice was sharp and gorgeous. You want to hurt me? Are you kidding me? Actually, I've always felt that this guard team my father formed was a bunch of useless people. Really, I really want to persuade my father. Why is he so stubborn? Does he have a lot of food at home? Raising trash for no reason. What, do you think I've hurt your dignity? Then don't find excuses. Let's fight one-on-one. Qin Zishi's aggro was simply off the charts. Those who didn't want to fight Qin Zishi one-on-one couldn't help but want to fight, let alone this group of eager people. Everyone's sleeves were intact. Even if Qin Zishi was Father Qin's son, they were prepared to beat him up. This was a matter of dignity. After being pointed at and scolded to this extent, if they didn't fight back, they would really be an iron-shelled turtle. Moreover, although this group of military ruffians was slick, each one of them was more unruly than the other. How could they withstand Qin Zishi's provocation? Someone immediately jumped out. I'll do it. But let me say this first, young master. Fists and feet don't have eyes. Not to mention superpowers. If you scratch a little skin, don't go crying and complaining to the general. Even if you beat me to death here today, no one will find trouble with you. I can guarantee that this is my pride, my father's pride, and the Qin family's pride, Qin Zishi said as he slowly rolled up his sleeves. That's good. This person couldn't wait to jump out and said excitedly, I'm a level 3 superpower user, strengthening type. Be careful, young master. As soon as he jumped out, those who were familiar with him immediately began to lament. How did this kid react so fast? He beat us to it. Sigh. If I had known, I would have gone up first. Qin Zishi looked him up and down, then sneered. One move. It had to be said that he was too arrogant. Even Xiao Qing felt that he was a little annoying. Gu Pan was still winking at her. Sister Qing, Qin Zishi has learned all your skills. His poisonous tongue and provocative skills are first class. Xiao Qing smiled, found a place to sit down and began to watch the show. Others might not know, but how could she not know Qin Zishi's strength? After all, those mutant animals that Qin Zishi had subdued were all caught by her personally. Sure enough, those people were provoked to the point that they couldn't take it anymore. Old Lu, don't embarrass us. They were here to watch the show. That's right, Old Lu. Didn't you hear that young master wants to finish you in one move? You have to at least survive one move. This was an exaggeration. Come. Do you want to bet how long this fight will take? This was a big deal. You guys, quiet down. Don't disturb their fight. This was the captain. Qin Zishi said with a serious face, beast taming ability, level 3 superpower user. Then he whistled. As soon as the whistle sounded, everyone immediately felt the ground shake and they couldn't stand still. They looked up in horror and saw a 2 to 3 meter tall bear running towards them. The captain's face changed immediately. He waved his hand and said in a shrill voice, Gather. Prepare for battle. Protect young master. Such a big bear, it must be at least level 3, right? Don't be nervous. Take care of the bear yourself. Qin Zishi waved his hand, and the members of the guards saw the ferocious-looking bear rush over with a roar, then lie down very docilely beside Qin Zishi. When Qin Zishi patted its head, it let out a satisfied growl from its throat. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 335. His own bear. In other words, he was going to fight this bear. The paranormal's face immediately turned as dark as a burnt dumpling. It was just like how he thought he was kicking a sponge, only to realize that he was kicking an iron plate, the kind that was red hot. What was even more terrifying was that even though he knew it was a hot iron plate, he still wanted to kick it a second time and a third time. So, this poor team member harbored the mentality that he was only a level 3, how powerful could a mutant animal be? He braced himself and said, "Come on." Then, he was slapped away. He flew a few meters without any resistance and fell heavily to the ground. If he hadn't activated his ability at that moment, it wouldn't have been as simple as chest tightness and chest pain. His sternum might have collapsed. Someone immediately shouted, "Young master, it hasn't started yet. Why did you attack?" Qin Zishi looked innocent. "I thought he was ready when he activated his superpower." "That's enough." The captain of the guards stopped the person who wanted to continue speaking. He felt a little embarrassed. A loss is a loss. There's no need for so many excuses. That person could only shut his mouth. Qin Zishi continued, "Is there anyone else who doesn't agree? If not, come and apologize." "Yes." Another man stood out from the crowd. He looked very strong, and people could associate him with the word majestic, especially his firm muscles. "I'm a strength ability user," the man said in a muffled voice. In his opinion, this mutant bear should be around level 3. Even if it was stronger than him, it definitely wasn't as agile as him. So, his chances of winning were still relatively high. Then, as soon as he activated his ability, he was slapped away. Even the distance he flew was exactly the same as the previous one. The people who were originally unconvinced were speechless. But they were still unconvinced. After all, no one was willing to bow down to someone they looked down on so easily. This was especially true for veterans like them, who were even more unwilling to do so. So, Qin Zishi took his bear and slapped almost 80% of the guards present. Finally, Qin Zishi clapped her hands and raised her eyebrows in disdain. "Is there anyone else who doesn't agree?" This time, no one responded. Everyone lowered their heads obediently. Qin Zishi glanced around and said, "Then go and apologize." However, no one moved for a long time. Qin Zishi said disdainfully, "What are men? They are men who are responsible. At the very least, they have to fulfill their promises. Cowards like you are not qualified to be soldiers, nor are you qualified to be men." A few of the veterans were greatly provoked. One of them straightened his neck and rebutted Qin Zishi, "Young master, it's not a problem for us to apologize to you because we respect the strong. But if you want us to apologize to that group, I can't do it." Gu Panpan and the others who were watching by the side laughed on the spot, especially Gu Panpan. She laughed so hard that she almost rolled on the ground. "You mean, you think we're not qualified enough to accept your apology, so you can eat your words? If that was the case, why did he agree to this bet in the first place? It's because you think you'll definitely win." Qin Zishi said that you're a group of cowards who can't afford to lose. "I think he's praising you. You're worse than cowards." "Why? Do you think I hurt your dignity? Then let's have a try." Gu Panpan rolled up her sleeves and sneered. "I'll show you that even a weakling like me is stronger than cowards like you." Chapter 336. The group of people glared angrily, but they didn't dare to say anything. Those who had been by Xiao Qing's side for a long time had unknowingly been infected with her poisonous tongue. Gu Panpan immediately stepped forward, then said in a pained tone, "I'm the weakest among us weaklings, but I feel that I'm stronger than all of you. If you don't dare to come up, that's fine too. I can let all of you come up together." The ability user who spoke first couldn't take it anymore. He jumped out and pointed at Gu Panpan. "I'll do it." He could be slapped by a bear, but how could he be slapped by Gu Panpan? Impossible. Reality told us that we should never raise flags. He activated his ability and charged forward fiercely. Then, he was slapped back by Gu Pan Pan, who had turned into a King Kong Barbie. After slapping this person, Gu Pan Pan stomped her foot on the ground, causing a long crack to appear. Her eyes were cold and carried a bit of fierceness. Who else? I gave you some face, and you want to start a die house. If it wasn't for Sister Qing telling us to keep a low profile, I would have thrown you weaklings back. The members of the escort team were stunned. At this point, no matter how stupid they were, they knew that none of Xiao Qing's group was simple. If something really happened, they would be the ones dragging them down. Thus, the group of people became more and more embarrassed. In the end, the captain of the escort team was the first to step forward and apologize sincerely. Sorry, we looked down on you. I apologize on behalf of my teammates. Although the members of the escort team were a little embarrassed, they all came forward to apologize. Xiao Qing brushed the dust off her clothes and said indifferently, "No need to apologize." Then, she changed her seat. Qin Zishi waved her hand. "All right, you can all go back. We don't need you here." The captain smiled fawningly and said, "Master, you really can't drive us away. We all know our mistakes and we've apologized. Please let us stay. At least we can still do some trivial things." Qin Zishi wanted to refuse, but seeing the captain's fawning and pitiful expression, and considering that his father and grandfather would be worried, she said coldly, "You can stay, but don't cause any more trouble." The group of people hurriedly promised, each more sincere than the other. After this incident, the group of people didn't think they were so awesome anymore. After all, there were only two people who had shown their strength. One was Qin Zishi, and the other was Gu Pan Pan. Qin Zishi, a bear, and Gu Pan Pan defeated them in a second. What about the rest of them? Not to mention Xiao Tong, who looked like an underage girl, Yan Chiyue, who looked like a boy toy, and finally Dumbo, who seemed to have a problem in IQ. It seemed that there was nothing to pay attention to. Cough, cough. Back to the main topic. At least Gu Chuan, Yan Hanqing, and Xiao Qing all looked awesome. This was especially true for Xiao Qing. As the leader of this group, she should be the strongest among them. Therefore, she was definitely stronger than Qin Zishi and Gu Pan Pan. Thus, the group of people felt as if they were looking up at a tall mountain, and looked at Xiao Qing with admiration. Xiao Qing was a little confused. Weren't they just mocking them? Why were they suddenly looking at her with such strange eyes? Were they not convinced and wanted to secretly trick her? In short, the atmosphere between the group of people finally became a little more harmonious, and it remained so until they arrived at their destination. Chapter 337. Their destination was a base that had been besieged by the zombie tide. It was a medium-sized base, neither big nor small. In order to deal with the zombie tide, the base had suffered heavy losses. When Xiao Qing and the others arrived, all the people in the base were repairing the fence. There were dark red bloodstains on the fence. After mixing with the dust, the bloodstains became a dark color. Almost all the superpowered people were injured. The group of people looked lifeless. They didn't feel like they had survived a disaster at all. It seems that the zombie tide has left. Xiao Qing looked around the base and said, "Should we go in and check if there is anything special, or just go straight ahead? Let's check it out first." "Let's get to know the situation first," Qin Zishi said in a low voice. Since the two leaders had spoken, no one objected. So they entered the base. Because of the zombie tide and their special identities, it was easy for them to enter the base and see the base chief. After explaining the purpose of their visit, Qin Zishi said to the base chief, "Is there anything special about the zombie tide this time?" "It's a special situation. The base chief thought for a moment, then said, "Indeed, we have experienced a zombie tide before, but it was always on a full moon night, like a riot. But this time, it happened at the beginning of the month, so it was very sudden. Because of that, we were not prepared and suffered heavy losses. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is that generally, zombie tides are formed spontaneously. We need to hold on until dawn at most, then the zombies will disperse. But this time, it was different. It felt like they were organized and premeditated. Once, they even pretended to disperse to lower our vigilance and launched a surprise attack. That's one of the reasons why we suffered heavy losses." The more the base chief said, the gloomier his face became. Nearly 1/3 of the superpowered people in our base were killed in the zombie tide. If they hadn't retreated, our base would have been destroyed in a day or two. Xiao Qing and her friends looked at each other and felt a little heavy in their hearts. In the past, the zombie tide was formed because of the riots of the zombies on the night of the full moon and some special circumstances. This time, it was premeditated. Did that mean that there was a high-level zombie among the zombies who could organize a zombie tide? Did that mean that the zombies would be able to form a zombie siege anytime and anywhere in the future? If that was the case, they would be in big trouble. After learning about the situation, Xiao Qing and her friends declined the base chief's proposal to have dinner with them. Then, they moved on to the next target. At that time, they had already turned around and walked back, because the zombie tide was moving toward the direction of the capital. Previously, they had taken a shortcut, so they missed the zombie crowd. When they arrived at the next base, the problem arose. Zombies were besieging the city. Yes, they happened to catch up with the zombie siege, and it wasn't as simple as a zombie tide. According to the news, all the zombie tides had gathered here. If one looked down from the sky, he or she would find that the surrounding area was densely packed with zombies. The swarming zombie heads alone were enough to make people with trypophobia collapse. Xiao Qing and her friends were a little worried. Did they have to wait until the zombie tide was over and then go in to find out what was going on? Or, should they sneak into the base now and find out why it was besieged by so many zombies? If they went in now, they would all die. Chapter 338. Xiao Qing found a high slope. Looking down from the top, there were still countless zombies, which made people's hair stand on end. She had to say, "Let's set up camp nearby and see the situation first." She couldn't make a decision rashly. After all, she had to think about the group of people around her. If she made a decision rashly, it was equal to sending these people to death. Although the group of people were also very worried about the current situation, they also knew that those zombies were only surrounding the city and hadn't started to attack yet. Moreover, now wasn't the time to be reckless, so they found a relatively safe place where they could see the whole situation clearly and set up camp. After setting up camp, they had dinner, but they didn't have the mood to sleep. After all, danger was close at hand. Except for those who were particularly open-minded, few people could fall asleep. Then, when it was a little dark, Xiao Qing left the tent by herself. She was ready to explore the situation and see what was going on. When Xiao Qing mixed in with a group of zombies, in fact, she was still a little bit uncomfortable. Because there were too many zombies around, the smell was very strong. The smell of corpses, mixed with the smell of blood, was very strong and nauseating. Xiao Qing walked from one end of the zombie army to the other end. At last, she found an unusual existence. This existence was too eye-catching, because all the zombies avoided her. Only this one zombie cast a sharp look at her the moment it found her. And this zombie didn't look like a zombie at all. She was wearing a clean black dress. Except for her pale face and a festering wound on her neck, she looked more like a normal human. And this zombie was holding a She didn't know whether to say it was a child's body or a skeleton. It should be a young child, which could be seen from the half-rotten skeleton. This zombie held Xiaoqing very tightly. Its eyes looked at Xiaoqing as if she would snatch it away. Xiaoqing could clearly feel its repulsion, but this zombie didn't attack Xiaoqing. It just growled in a low voice, as if it wanted to expel Xiaoqing from its territory. Xiaoqing touched his chin and walked around before leaving. In the middle of the night, the group of zombies launched an attack. Countless zombies rushed to the base without fear of death. Some fell under the superpowers, some fell under the bullets, but the rest of the zombies continued to advance. The siege and defense lasted for nearly 2 hours. Then, the group of zombies silently retreated and returned to their initial state of surrounding the entire base. Xiaoqing didn't understand what was going on, so she returned to the tent and continued to sleep. In the middle of the night, the sound of fighting shook the sky. There might be another zombie siege, but this time, Xiaoqing didn't get up to take a look. She curled up in the bed and continued to sleep. The next morning, Xiaoqing stood on the hillside and looked down. She saw a lot of zombie corpses lying on the side near the base. Of course, there were also a lot of human corpses. Because the zombies were still surrounding the base, there was no way to go out of the base to collect the corpses. Therefore, the human corpses had started to rot because they had been on the ground for a long time. It seemed that it wasn't the first day that the zombies had besieged the base. Xiaoqing was most curious about why the group of zombies had surrounded the base and then nibbled it away bit by bit. It couldn't be that they were hungry, so they specially passed through so many bases and came here to eat up the entire base. Moreover, she felt that these zombies were very organized and premeditated. They were organizing attacks again and again, consuming the strength of the base. They also knew how to surround but not attack, and exerted mental pressure. Fuck, it felt like the zombies were about to become spirits. Xiaoqing didn't plan to take her friends to help. First of all, there were so many zombies. Even if there were a few more people, they wouldn't be able to help much. Second of all, they were only there to investigate the cause of the zombie attack, not to die. If you had the ability but didn't help, you would be heartless. If you didn't have the ability, you would be stupid. I have a feeling that the people inside probably know something. Xiaoqing discussed with her friends while eating. How about I go in and have a look tonight? Qin Zishi was the first to object, and his objection was very strong. No. Sister Qing, although you're very strong, a lot of ants can bite an elephant to death. There are so many zombies. It's too dangerous. I don't agree with you going in. The others all knew that Xiaoqing's body was special and wouldn't be attacked by zombies, but he didn't know that. He didn't want his friends to die. Hearing Qin Zishi's objection, even Yan Qiue looked at him gently. After all, she could see that Qin Zishi really cared about Xiaoqing. Don't worry. Xiaoqing rubbed Qin Zishi's head and said, don't forget that I have a special ability to not be discovered by zombies. Qin Zishi was still a little embarrassed. He said in a low voice, what if something happens? You can't run away when surrounded by so many zombies. There's no need to take risks. We've already found a lot of useful things. Even if we go back and report now, it's enough. As for this base, it's not that we don't want to save it, but that we don't have the ability. Instead of taking risks, it's better to go back and ask for help and see if we can save this base in time. Xiaoqing actually felt very warm. After all, Qin Zishi cared about her. However, she always felt that she was not far from the truth. She was ready to comfort Qin Zishi, so she said, you're right. Before Qin Zishi's expression softened, she said, but I think we can split into 2 groups. One group will go back and inform your father and see if they can send people to help. The other group will be me. I'll go in and have a look. I promise that I won't let myself be in danger. If something happens, I'll come out immediately. Qin Zishi was speechless. After all, they still had to go in. There would be no change. Chapter 339. Qin Zishi didn't say anything, showing that he didn't want to leave no matter what. In the end, Xiaoqing had no choice but to say, "Okay, I won't go, but we still need help." Qin Zishi hurriedly said, "Just let the guards go back." This boy was smart. Xiaoqing had to settle on Gu Chuan and his sister, and take half of the guards back to ask for help. Qin Zishi kept a close eye on them. No matter what, he couldn't let his little friend's mother take the risk. Then, when he realized that something was wrong, Xiaoqing was already in the base. She secretly entered the base by tearing the space. She was an unregistered person, and it would be troublesome if she was discovered. Fortunately, because of the zombie siege, countless people had died. The base was very chaotic, and no one would care if this person suddenly appeared. Therefore, Xiaoqing easily sneaked in. She found a few people sitting in the corner dejectedly, and then went forward to inquire about the news. "Brothers, how's the situation now?" They didn't suspect anything, and said one after another, "It's the 6th time. We've lost more than half of our people. If this continues, I'm afraid." The person who spoke had panic in his eyes. After all, everyone knew what would happen to them if the base was breached. Last night, when the zombies attacked the base for the last time, we almost couldn't hold on. But at the last moment, the zombies suddenly became chaotic. Our people were in position in time, and we managed to hold on. I think we can hold on for one more round, at most. The last one sighed, and then took out a cigarette box from his chest pocket. There were 3 or 4 wrinkled cigarettes in the box. He gave one to each of the people around him, and took one to Xiaoqing. "Want one?" Xiaoqing shook her head. The 2 people beside the man immediately made fun of him. "Don't you usually value cigarettes more than your life? Why are you willing to give it away this time?" The man smiled bitterly. "No one knows if they can last another day. What's the point of keeping them?" Xiaoqing rummaged in her pocket and took out a box of thin Nanjing. She pulled one out and gave one to everyone. Didn't the higher-ups think of a way? "Yo, nice smoke." That person happily took it and tucked it behind his ear, then said, "Why didn't you think of a way? We've had dozens of meetings. That group of zombies seems to have a special ability. Once the signal is sent out, it will be intercepted. Even if the entire base is trampled by zombies, no one will know." The 3 of them gathered together and sighed. One of them glanced at Xiaoqing and said kindly, "You're still young and pretty. Think of a way to escape. No matter where you go, you'll have a way to survive." "Bah, if we could escape, we would have scattered long ago." Another man's eyes turned red after he said that. "My daughter is only 8 years old. If we could escape, I would send my daughter out first. It doesn't matter if I die, but my daughter." Xiaoqing was silent for a long time. She didn't know what to say. After all, the base was doomed to be destroyed. Even if Gu Chuan and the others brought reinforcements, distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. As for nearby water, her strength alone was like a small splash of water. She couldn't put out the fire. She might even be evaporated by the fire. They were silent for a long time. Suddenly, one of them said, "I heard that the higher-ups held a new meeting. They said that to catch the bandits, first catch the leader. If we kill the leader of the zombies, we can solve the zombie siege. I heard that they have begun to gather people to form a suicide squad to catch the leader." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.